The highway stretched endlessly through frozen Iowa farmland, mile after mile of skeletal corn stalks jutting from snow-covered earth like tombstones in an endless cemetery. Rachel Hartman gripped the steering wheel of her aging Honda Civic, knuckles white against cracked leather, belly pressed uncomfortably close to the dashboard despite the seat pushed back as far as it would go. 7 months pregnant, and driving alone through December cold toward a town she had sworn never to return to. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, a protest or a greeting, Rachel could never tell which. She placed one hand on her swollen abdomen, keeping the other steady on the wheel as the car shuddered against crosswinds sweeping across open fields. No trees to break the wind out here, just earth and sky and the kind of emptiness that felt like drowning in air. She had left Cedar Falls 8 years ago with 2 suitcases and a scholarship to Iowa State, had promised herself she would never come back except for holidays, and even those became excuses after the first 2 years. Thanksgiving with roommates, Christmas with boyfriends' families. Any reason to avoid the quiet disappointment in her mother's voice when Rachel called to say she would not be coming home. The last time she saw Dorothy Hartman alive was at Easter, 3 years ago, a strained weekend of careful conversation and things left unsaid. Rachel had brought Ben that trip, thinking maybe her mother would approve of the charming real estate developer with his easy smile and expensive watch. Instead, Dorothy had looked at Ben the way she looked at storm clouds on the horizon, something coming that would bring ruin if you did not prepare. They had fought about it after Ben went to bed in the guest room. Dorothy standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes that were already clean, Rachel leaning against the counter with her arms crossed, both of them speaking in furious whispers so Ben would not hear. "He is not right for you. You have never approved of anyone I chose. That is not true and you know it. Then what is it about Ben that bothers you so much?" Dorothy had turned from the sink, hands dripping soap suds onto the worn linoleum floor. Her eyes held something Rachel had never seen before. Not anger, fear. "I see something hollow in that boy's eyes, Rachel, like he is performing himself rather than being himself, like there is an agenda beneath the charm. You are being paranoid. Maybe I am becoming my mother after all." The conversation had ended there, as so many of their conversations ended, in silence and distance and the unspoken accusation that loving someone meant trying to control them. Rachel had left the next morning, Ben beside her in the passenger seat, and did not call home for 2 months. When she finally did call, Dorothy answered on the first ring like she had been waiting by the phone. "I am sorry, Mom." "I know, honey, so am I." They never spoke of Ben again. Rachel moved to Denver for his job, followed him to Seattle when a better opportunity emerged, shaped her life around his trajectory, telling herself this was what partnership looked like: compromise, flexibility, love. Until 6 weeks ago, when she told him about the baby. They were in the kitchen of their modern apartment, all steel and glass, and surfaces too clean to feel lived in. Rachel had taken 3 pregnancy tests to be certain before she said anything, had rehearsed the conversation in her mind 100 times. She waited until after dinner, after Ben poured himself the expensive bourbon he saved for celebrating good news. "I need to tell you something." Ben had looked up from his phone, still scrolling through work emails. "I am pregnant." The scrolling stopped. His face went carefully blank in the way she had learned meant he was calculating his response, processing, strategizing. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. "And you are just telling me now?" "I wanted to be sure." Ben set down his phone with the deliberate care of someone trying very hard not to throw it. He stood, walked to the window, looked out at the Seattle skyline glittering in the evening dark. This was not the plan, Rachel. Plans change. Not like this, they do not. I have the Tokyo project starting in 3 months. You know how important this is for the firm, for us. For you. He had turned then, and Rachel saw it clearly for the first time. The thing her mother had seen 3 years ago. The hollowness, the performance, the calculation behind every word and gesture. You said you were on birth control. I am. Nothing is 100%. This is not. I am not ready for this responsibility. Neither am I, but here we are. Ben had run his hands through his hair, the gesture she used to find endearing now seeming rehearsed, designed to convey distress without actual vulnerability. I need time to think. How much time? I do not know. This changes everything. The Tokyo transfer, my career trajectory. I need to figure out what this means for my future. What about our future? He had looked at her then with something like pity, or maybe it was contempt. She could not tell the difference anymore. Rachel, be realistic. I am 32 years old. I am finally getting somewhere in my career. A baby right now would derail everything I have worked for, everything we have worked for. I did not realize I was an investment that needed to provide returns. That is not fair. Neither is this conversation. They had stood there in the kitchen with the dishwasher humming and the city lights cold beyond the glass, and Rachel understood with perfect clarity that she was alone, more alone than she had ever been. Ben moved out 3 days later, took his expensive suits and his laptop and his collection of craft bourbon, and left her with the lease on an apartment she could not afford and a pregnancy she had not planned. He texted her once the following week. My lawyer will contact you about support arrangements. I want to do the right thing financially, but I cannot be a father, not now, maybe not ever. I am sorry. She had deleted his number that night. Quit her job at the landscape architecture firm 2 weeks later when morning sickness made it impossible to function. Gave notice on the apartment. Packed her life into her car piece by piece until there was nothing left but empty rooms and the ghost of a future that would never happen. The only place left to go was the place she had spent 8 years avoiding. Home. Except Dorothy was not there anymore. The call had come 6 months ago while Rachel was still in Seattle, still trying to figure out how to tell her mother about the pregnancy, about Ben leaving, about everything falling apart. The hospital's social worker had been kind but efficient. Ms. Hartman, this is Grace Memorial Hospital in Cedar Falls. I am calling about Dorothy Hartman. I am very sorry to inform you that your mother passed away this morning. It was a heart attack. She was working in her garden. The paramedics said she went quickly. Rachel had flown back for the funeral but only stayed 1 day. Could not bear to enter the empty house where her mother's presence still lingered in every room like a scent. Could not face the neighbors with their casseroles and their careful sympathy. Could not stand in the cemetery and watch them lower Dorothy into the frozen ground beside Rachel's father, knowing that she had not been there at the end, had not said goodbye, had not told her mother about the baby she was carrying. Your mother was so proud of you, people kept saying at the reception. She talked about you all the time. But Rachel knew better. She knew the silence in their phone calls, the things left unsaid, the distance that had grown between them like frost creeping across a window until you could no longer see through to the other side. She had driven back to Seattle that same night, told herself she would deal with the house later, with the estate, with the terrible permanence of a mother who would never answer the phone again. Later had become now. The Cedar Falls exit appeared on her right. Rachel signaled even though there were no other cars on the road. followed the ramp down into the network of county highways that wound through farmland like veins through flesh. The town appeared gradually. First the grain elevator rising against the gray sky, then the water tower with cedar FALLS painted in fading letters. Then Main Street with its brick storefronts and diagonal parking, and the kind of emptiness that comes when young people leave and never return. She drove through downtown without stopping, past the diner where she had eaten breakfast every Sunday after church, past the library where she had spent childhood afternoons lost in books, past the high school where she had run track and dreamed of anywhere but here. The turn onto Maple Road came automatically, muscle memory guiding her hands. 3 miles outside town, the farmland opened up, and there it was. The house. White clapboard with green shutters and a wraparound porch, sitting on 80 acres of land her great-grandfather had bought in 1934 with money saved from 2 decades of working other men's farms. The house looked smaller than she remembered, more fragile, paint peeling on the north side where weather hit hardest, several roof tiles missing, the porch sagging slightly on the left corner. But the driveway had been plowed recently, snow piled neatly on either side. Someone had been here, taking care. Rachel pulled in and killed the engine, sat in the sudden silence broken only by the tick of cooling metal and her own breathing. The baby kicked again, harder this time, insistent. "I know we are here." She hauled herself out of the car, one hand braced on the door frame, the other supporting her belly. The cold hit immediately, sharp and clean and nothing like the damp chill of Seattle. This was prairie cold, the kind that found its way through every layer of clothing and settled in your bones. The front steps creaked under her weight, the porch boards too, everything announcing her arrival to the empty house. She found the key where her mother always kept it, under the ceramic frog by the door. Some things never changed. Small-town trust or small-town foolishness. Rachel was never sure which. The key turned in the lock with the same resistance it had always had. The door swung open. The smell hit her first, not decay or abandonment as she had feared, something else. Lemon polish, fresh air, like someone had been cleaning recently. The furniture was still covered with sheets, but they were clean sheets, white and crisp, not the yellow, dusty covering she expected. Rachel moved through the entryway into the living room. Afternoon light filtered through windows that had been washed recently. No film of neglect. The hardwood floors were swept clean, not a cobweb in sight. In the kitchen she found the source of the maintenance. The refrigerator hummed quietly, recently restocked. Milk with an expiration date 3 days away. Eggs, butter, bread, fresh vegetables in the crisper drawer, like someone knew she was coming, like someone had been waiting. The utilities were on, heat flowing through the old radiators with their familiar clank and hiss, lights working when she flipped switches, water running clear and cold from the tap. This was not an abandoned house. This was a house being kept. Rachel's hands shook as she opened cupboards, found them stocked with basics, canned goods, pasta, rice, coffee, and there, on the counter beside the stove, something that made her breath catch. A Christmas tree. Not a large one, 4 feet tall, sitting in a stand on the kitchen table. Fresh cut, needles still green and fragrant. Bare of ornaments but strung with lights, the cord coiled neatly beside the base waiting to be plugged in. Someone had put up a Christmas tree for her. Rachel sank into one of the kitchen chairs, the weight of pregnancy and exhaustion, and 6 months of grief finally breaking through the numbness she had wrapped around herself like armor. She pressed her palms against the scarred oak table where she had done homework and eaten breakfast, and listened to her mother read recipes aloud while cooking dinner. That was when she saw it. An envelope, cream-colored, heavy paper, her name written across the front in her mother's elegant cursive, propped against the sugar bowl like it had been waiting. Rachel reached for it with trembling fingers, turned it over. The flap was sealed with a small gold sticker, a sunflower, her mother's favorite. She opened it carefully, preserving the seal the way she used to preserve special things when she was a child. Inside, 2 pages of her mother's handwriting. The ink slightly faded, like the letter had been written months ago, waiting for this moment. My dearest Rachel, if you are reading this, I am gone, but please do not cry yet. I have had 4 months to prepare since the first heart attack. Yes, there was a first one I did not tell you about. The doctors gave me 6 to 18 months. I chose to spend that time preparing rather than mourning. I am not afraid. Death is just another season, and I have always loved the turning of seasons. I know about the baby. Rachel stopped reading. Read the line again, her mother knew. How did she know? I know you think I am psychic or meddling or both, but the truth is simpler. A mother knows. The way you sounded on the phone last spring had a particular quality, joy mixed with fear, hope mixed with uncertainty. I recognized it because I felt the same way when I learned I was carrying you. I did not ask because I was waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me. I understand why you did not. We had not been kind to each other in our last conversations. I am sorry for that. Sorry for pushing when I should have listened. Sorry for trying to protect you in ways that felt like control. But I am not sorry for being right about Ben. I know he left you. I know you are alone and scared and probably angry at me for not being there when you needed me most. I wish I could be. I wish I could hold your hand through labor and teach you how to change diapers and help you through the sleepless nights that are coming. Since I cannot be there in body, I have tried to be there in preparation. The house is paid off. I took a reverse mortgage 3 years ago to clear the remaining debt. It was not easy living on so little, but I wanted you to inherit this place free and clear. No burden of debt, just choice. You have 90 days from my death to decide if you want to keep it or sell. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson in town, will explain the legal details. But before you decide, I want you to find something. In this house, I have hidden 12 gifts. One for each month you will be a mother in your baby's first year. Each gift is hidden somewhere meaningful. Each one contains something I want you to have, something I hope will help you. The first gift is already in front of you, the recipe box on the counter beside the stove. Inside, you will find a recipe marked December. For your first night home, make it tonight, cook in this kitchen where I cooked for you. Let the house remember what it is for, not just shelter, but nourishment, care, love made tangible. The other 11 gifts are hidden throughout the house and property. I have left clues in each one to help you find the next. Think of it as a treasure hunt. The kind we used to do when you were little, before life got complicated and we forgot how to play together. You do not have to stay. You do not have to keep this house. You do not have to do anything except know that you are loved, fiercely, completely, beyond the grave. But if you do stay, if you do search, I think you will find more than gifts. I think you will find answers to questions you have not asked yet. About me, about your father, about what it means to build a life versus inherit one. I am so proud of you, Rachel, not for what you have achieved, though you have achieved much, but for who you are, strong, stubborn, capable of love even when love has hurt you. The baby you are carrying will be lucky to have you as a mother. Now stop crying and go make pot roast. Use the cast iron pan, not the non-stick. Trust me on this. All my love, always and forever. Mom. P.S. The Christmas tree was Helen Crane's idea. She has been checking on the house for me, keeping things ready. She knows about the gifts but not what is in them. Trust her. She is a good woman, better than I deserved as a neighbor." Rachel folded the letter carefully, hands shaking. Read it again. Then a third time. Her mother had known about the pregnancy, about Ben leaving, had known Rachel would come home eventually, had spent her final months preparing for this moment. She stood cross to the counter, found the recipe box exactly where her mother said it would be. Old wood, carved with flowers, the finish worn smooth from decades of use. Rachel lifted the lid. Inside, hundreds of recipe cards organized by category. Soups, casseroles, breads, desserts. Her mother's handwriting on every card, notes in the margins about doubling ingredients or adjusting cooking times or which child had requested the dish most often. The card marked December was at the very front, placed there deliberately. December. For your first night home. Dorothy's Sunday pot roast. The recipe was written in the careful detail her mother always used. Exact measurements, specific instructions, nothing left to chance. But in the margins, additional notes in a different ink. Recent additions. Rachel, honey, I know you are tired. I know you are scared. I know cooking feels impossible right now. But trust me, this recipe is not just food. It is medicine for lonely hearts. As you cook, remember. The carrots you are chopping. I grew these in the garden every summer of your childhood. The potatoes you are peeling. Your father loved them roasted until the edges crisped. The onions that make you cry, let them. Tears are just grief leaving the body to make room for something new. The meat that fills the house with savory warmth. This is comfort made tangible. Cooking is an act of faith. You put ingredients together trusting they will become something greater than their parts. Motherhood is the same. You are just ingredients right now, scared and alone and grieving, but you will become something greater. Trust the process. The pot roast takes 3 hours, slow cooking, low heat, no shortcuts. While it cooks, explore the house, see what has changed, what has stayed the same. Let memory wash over you like water. It will hurt. Let it hurt. Pain is just love with nowhere to go. When the pot roast is done, eat it at the kitchen table. Set 2 places, one for you, one for the baby inside you. You are not alone. You have never been alone. Tomorrow, if you choose to stay, look for January's gift in the attic, in the room that holds the most pain. You will know it when you see it. Rachel set down the card, crossed to the refrigerator, found every ingredient waiting. Someone had shopped recently. Helen, probably, following Dorothy's instructions even after death. She pulled out the cast iron pan her mother had used for 40 years, heavy and perfectly seasoned, placed it on the stove, began chopping vegetables the way her mother had taught her. Carrots cut on the diagonal for maximum surface area, potatoes in rough chunks, skin on for texture, onions sliced thin so they would melt into the gravy. The familiar rhythm steadied her shaking hands. The smell of onions frying in butter filled the kitchen. She browned the meat, added wine to deglaze the pan, tucked everything into the cast iron with aromatics and broth, and slid it into the oven. 3 hours at 300 degrees. While the pot roast cooked, Rachel wandered through the house. The living room with its brick fireplace and built-in bookshelves still holding her mother's collection of gardening books and mystery novels. The dining room with the oak table that seated 12, though it had been years since that many people gathered here. Her father's study, frozen in time, his desk still holding the coffee mug he had used the morning of the accident. Upstairs, the bedrooms. Her parents' room, the bed neatly made with the wedding ring quilt her grandmother had stitched. The guest room, still holding furniture from when it was Jack's room before he fled to New York. And her room, the smallest bedroom at the end of the hall. Rachel pushed open the door. The room was exactly as she had left it. Track trophies on the shelf, posters of national parks on the walls. The quilt her mother had made when Rachel turned 16, each square a different phase of her childhood. Baby clothes, elementary school artwork, middle school dance recital costumes, high school track uniforms. But someone had been maintaining this room too. Fresh sheets on the bed, clean curtains on the windows, and on the nightstand a stack of new books, pregnancy guides, parenting manuals, baby name books, all with their spines uncracked, waiting. Her mother had been preparing this room as a nursery. Rachel sank onto the bed, feeling the familiar give of the mattress, smelling the faint scent of her mother's lavender linen spray. Tears came hard and fast, the kind of crying that steals your breath and leaves you hollow. She cried for her mother who had died alone in the garden, for the grandmother her baby would never meet, for the years of distance and misunderstanding, for Ben and the life that would never happen, for herself, 29 and pregnant and more lost than she had ever been. When the tears finally stopped, the house was darker. The sun had set while she grieved, but the smell of pot roast filled every room, rich and savory and exactly like childhood. Rachel went downstairs, checked the oven. The meat fell apart at the touch of a fork. Vegetables were soft. Gravy was perfect. She made herself a plate, set the table for two as her mother instructed, one place for her, one for the baby. The first bite transported her instantly. She was 8 years old at Sunday dinner. She was 16, eating leftovers after track practice. She was 22, home from college, sitting across from her mother in comfortable silence. The pot roast was memory made edible, love you could taste. Rachel ate slowly, savoring each bite. When she finished, she washed the dishes by hand, dried them, put them away exactly where her mother had always kept them. Then she stood at the kitchen sink, looking out the window at her mother's garden buried under snow, and felt something shift inside her. Not quite peace, not yet, but possibility. The baby kicked. I know we are home. Tomorrow she would search the attic for January's gift. Tonight she would sleep in her childhood bed and let the house hold her the way it had held 3 generations of Hartman women before her. But first, there was something she needed to do. Rachel found her phone, scrolled to a number she had not called in 12 years, hesitated, then pressed dial. It rang 4 times before a man's voice answered, cautious, suspicious. Hello. Jack, it is Rachel. Silence, then Rachel, I did not expect. How are you? I am at the house. Another pause. I heard you were coming back. Look, I know this is difficult, but we need to talk about the property. I have been contacted by a developer and they are offering fair market value. $340,000. We should take it. Rachel looked around the kitchen, the recipe box, the cast iron pan soaking in the sink, the Christmas tree waiting to be lit. No. What do you mean, no? Rachel, be reasonable. That house is falling apart. You are in no position to maintain it. Take the money. We split it. Both of us walk away, set up for the next chapter of our lives. Mom wanted me to have this house. Mom is dead, and I am the primary heir according to the estate documents. I have power of attorney. Rachel felt cold spread through her chest. Had he always been this calculating, or had New York made him this way? I am not selling, Jack. Then we have a problem, because I am. The line went dead. Rachel stood in her mother's kitchen, phone still pressed to her ear, and understood that the fight for this house was just beginning. Outside, car headlights swept across the driveway. Rachel tensed, then relaxed as she recognized the sensible sedan. A woman emerged, Older, silver-haired, wrapped in a practical winter coat, she carried a casserole dish. Helen Crane, the neighbor her mother had mentioned. Rachel opened the door before Helen could knock. "You must be Rachel." Helen's smile was warm but assessing. "Your mother talked about you all the time. I am so sorry for your loss." "Thank you, and thank you for maintaining the house, for the groceries." Helen waved a hand. "It was the least I could do. Dorothy was. She was the best person I ever knew. The world is diminished without her. Would you like to come in?" Helen stepped inside, took in the pot roast smell, the washed dishes, the evidence of Rachel settling in. "You found the letter." "I did." "And the recipe?" "Just finished eating it." Helen nodded, satisfied. "Good. She was worried you might come back and leave right away. Sell without ever really seeing what she prepared for you." "My brother called. He wants to sell." "I know." Helen set the casserole on the counter. "He has been calling your mother monthly for 3 years, pressuring her. She refused every time. Said this house belongs to the next generation, meaning you." "Did she know about Jack's deal with the developers?" "She suspected. Your mother was no fool. She did her research, found out things that troubled her deeply." "What kind of things?" Helen hesitated. "That is not my story to tell, but it is in the gifts. Keep searching. You will understand." "How many gifts are there really?" 12, one for each month of your baby's first year. "You know where they are hidden?" "Some of them, not all. Dorothy liked her secrets." "Why did she do this? Why not just tell me these things?" Helen looked at Rachel with something like pity, because she was terrified of becoming her mother, of being controlling, of pushing you away by trying too hard to protect you. So she chose this instead, letting you discover things at your own pace, giving you agency even after she was gone. "That sounds exhausting." It was. Helen smiled sadly. "She died exhausted, died in the garden, planting something for your baby to discover in the spring. Her last act was preparation for someone she would never meet. That is who your mother was. Everything she did was for you, even when it looked like something else." The baby kicked hard enough to make Rachel wince. Helen noticed. "When are you due?" 6 weeks. "You planning to stay that long?" Rachel had not been planning anything beyond tonight. But standing in this kitchen with pot roast smell in the air, and her mother's handwriting on the recipe card, and Helen looking at her with the kind of steady kindness that expected nothing in return, she felt something click into place. "Yes, I think I am." "Then you should know something." Helen's voice went serious. "Jack filed papers with the county this morning. As co-heir with power of attorney, he is initiating probate proceedings to force sale of the estate. You have 30 days to contest or the property goes to auction." 30 days. 30 days. "Can I contest?" "You can try, but you will need a lawyer, and money, and time, all things you probably do not have right now." Rachel pressed her hand to her belly, felt the baby moving beneath her palm. 30 days to fight for a house she was not sure she wanted. 30 days to uncover whatever secrets her mother had hidden. 30 days to decide between the past and the future. "I need to find the January gift." Helen nodded. "In the attic, in Jack's old room. Your mother said you would know it when you saw it, that it would help you understand why he ran, why he cannot come home, why he needs this sale so desperately." Rachel looked up at the ceiling, toward the attic stairs at the end of the second-floor hallway. "I should go tonight." Helen put a hand on Rachel's arm. Tonight you rest. You have been driving all day. You are 7 months pregnant. Your body needs sleep more than your mind needs answers." She was right. Rachel felt exhaustion pulling at her like an undertow. Helen headed for the door, then paused. Your mother loved you more than her own life, Rachel. Everything she did, every choice she made these last months was about giving you options. Freedom. Choice. Do not let Jack or anyone else take that from you. After Helen left, Rachel locked the door, checked all the windows, set her phone to charge. Then she climbed the stairs to her childhood bedroom. The bed welcomed her like memory. She lay on top of the covers, too tired to change clothes, and placed both hands on her belly. Okay, baby, here is where we are. We have a house we might lose, an uncle who wants to take it from us, a grandmother who left us clues we have not found yet, and 30 days to figure out what kind of life we are going to build. The baby kicked twice. Agreement or protest, Rachel chose to believe it was agreement. She closed her eyes, drifted toward sleep. In that space between waking and dreaming, she could almost smell her mother's perfume, roses and vanilla, the scent of every childhood comfort. Tomorrow she would climb to the attic, would find Jack's room frozen in time, would discover whatever truth her mother thought she needed to know. Tonight she would sleep in the house where she was born, in the room where she grew up, surrounded by the life her mother had built and maintained and filled with love even when that love went unacknowledged. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and steady, covering the garden where Dorothy had died, covering the driveway where Rachel's car sat loaded with everything she owned, covering Cedar Falls in white silence. Inside, the house creaked and settled. The radiators clanked. The old timbers spoke in their language of expansion and contraction, of holding weight, of sheltering life. Rachel Hartman slept. And in her dreams, her mother was planting a garden, row after row of seeds pressed into dark earth, each one a promise, each one a gift waiting to grow. Morning came gray and cold, the kind of winter dawn that feels more like twilight. Rachel woke to the baby kicking insistently against her ribs, a reminder that bodies keep their own schedules regardless of grief or exhaustion or the overwhelming weight of decisions not yet made. She lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling she had memorized during 1,000 sleepless nights of adolescence, and tried to gather courage for what came next. The attic. Jack's room. The place that holds the most pain. She made coffee in her mother's kitchen, using the old percolator that gave off its familiar burbling song. Ate toast standing at the counter because sitting felt like committing to something she was not ready to commit to. Through the window, she could see Helen's house next door, smoke rising from the chimney in a straight line against the still air. A light was on in the kitchen. Helen up early too. Or maybe she had not slept either. Maybe the whole town was awake, waiting to see what Rachel Hartman would do with the inheritance that was both gift and burden. The attic stairs were at the end of the upstairs hallway, behind a door she had not opened in 8 years. The knob turned stiffly, hinges protesting as she pulled. A folding ladder descended with a groan of old springs and settling dust. Rachel looked up into the darkness above, one hand braced against her belly. 7 months pregnant, climbing ladders, her doctor would be horrified. She climbed anyway. The attic smelled of cedar and old paper and time compressed into physical space. Someone had been up here recently. The floor was swept clean. Boxes were organized along one wall, each labeled in her mother's handwriting with years and categories. Rachel's school years, holiday decorations, William's things, the archaeological record of a family preserved in cardboard and tape. But the January gift was not in any box. It was in the room itself. At the far end of the attic, beneath the slope of the roof, where the ceiling angled down to meet the floor, a space had been walled off with plywood and 2x4s. A door, slightly ajar, light filtering through the gap. Jack's room, the one he had built himself the summer before their father died, when being 15 meant needing territory that was entirely your own. Dorothy had allowed it, even helped him install electricity and insulation, turning unused attic space into a teenage sanctuary. Rachel approached slowly, pushed the door open with fingertips that trembled. The room was exactly as Jack had left it 16 years ago. Posters on the walls, not rock bands or sports heroes but national parks, mountains, rivers, forests, places far from Iowa, windows to elsewhere. A desk still held textbooks and notebooks, a pencil cup, a desk lamp with a green glass shade. The narrow bed was made with military precision, the way their father had taught both of them to make beds, corners tucked, blankets smooth. On the desk, 4 envelopes, thick manila envelopes with university crests embossed on the corners. Rachel picked up the first one, Stanford, opened it with careful fingers. Inside, an acceptance letter dated April 2008, full scholarship, room and board included. Congratulations on your exceptional achievement. The second was MIT, same story, full ride. The third, Cornell, again, scholarship covering everything. The fourth, Princeton, same offer, different coast. 4 of the best universities in the country offering Jack everything he needed to escape, and he had never opened them, had left them here, unopened, on the day he fled. Rachel set them down carefully, understanding beginning to form like ice crystals at the edge of a puddle. Fragile, intricate, painful in its clarity. On the bed, a journal, black composition book, the kind you buy for 79 cents at the drugstore. The first entry was dated June 2008, a week after their father's funeral. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed, opened the journal, and read her brother's 17-year-old handwriting. Dad is dead, and everyone expects me to become him. The funeral was yesterday. Pastor Tom talked about Dad's commitment to the land, to tradition, to providing for his family. Uncle Robert said Dad would want me to carry on his legacy, work the farm, keep the Hartman name on the deed. Cousin Michael said farming is in our blood, like we do not have a choice about what flows through our veins. Mom stood at the grave and cried in that terrible silent way she has, shoulders shaking, no sound, like grief is something to be ashamed of. Rachel held her hand, 9 years old and already stronger than I will ever be. After everyone left, I went back to the barn, to the tractor, the one that killed him. They cleaned it, washed away the blood and the evidence, made it functional again, because we need it for harvest, because life does not stop for death, because the corn does not care that my father is crushed beneath metal and earth. I stood there in the barn looking at that tractor and I understood something. This farm is hungry. It has been eating Hartman men for generations. Grandpa's heart attack in the field at 62. Great-grandpa's accident with the combine. Now Dad, 44 years old, caught when the tractor rolled on the slope we had told him was too steep. Everyone says it was bad luck, bad timing, should have been more careful. But I think the land itself is hungry, demanding tribute, blood for harvest. Mom wants me to stay, to work the farm until I am old enough to take it over completely. To give her time to heal, she says, to honor Dad's memory. But every time I walk outside, I see the place where he died, the slope, the overturned earth where they dug him out, the crushed corn stalks that mark the exact spot his life ended. I cannot do it. I cannot become the next generation of Hartman men fed to this land. The acceptance letters came today. I did not tell Mom, did not open them, because I already know what they say. I applied to every school I could think of that was not in Iowa, not in the Midwest, not anywhere near farming. I am leaving. The day after graduation. I do not care if mom says it is running away. I do not care if the neighbors think I am abandoning the family. I do not care if Rachel grows up hating me for leaving her alone with this. I care about surviving, and survival means getting as far from this place as possible. I am sorry, Dad. I am sorry I cannot be you. I am sorry your death means nothing if I do not continue what you started. But I will die here too if I stay, not in a tractor accident, in a slower way, in the death of everything I could have been. So I am choosing to live, even if that makes me a coward. The entries continued through the summer, Jack working the farm because his mother needed him, hating every moment, feeling the weight of expectation like a physical thing pressing down on his chest, counting days until he could leave. The final entry was dated the day before he left for New York. I told Mom tonight that I was leaving, that I could not stay. She cried, not the silent crying from the funeral, the kind where you cannot catch your breath, where sound comes out in gasps. She said I was betraying Dad's memory, throwing away everything he built, being selfish. I said I was being honest, that I could not pretend to want a life I did not want. She said someday I would understand, that family and land and legacy matter more than individual dreams. I said maybe, but not today. Rachel stayed in her room. I heard her crying through the wall. She is old enough to understand I am leaving, not old enough to understand why. I wanted to explain, to tell her that I am not abandoning her, that I am saving myself, that those are different things. But how do you explain survival to a child? I am 17 years old. I have 4 full scholarship offers. I have a bus ticket to New York purchased with money saved from 3 summers of farm work. I have 1 suitcase packed with everything I own that matters. Tomorrow I leave, forever probably. Mom does not understand. Every inch of this soil reminds me of Dad crushed under metal. The smell of turned earth makes me sick. The sound of machinery makes my hands shake. I cannot sleep without dreaming of tractors rolling, of being trapped beneath weight I cannot move. I have to leave or I will die here too. Not in body maybe, but in every way that matters. I am sorry, Mom. I am sorry, Rachel. I am sorry, Dad. But I cannot be what you need me to be. I can only be what I am, and what I am is desperate to survive. The journal ended there. The rest of the pages were blank, waiting for entries that never came. Rachel sat in her brother's childhood room holding his adolescent grief in her hands and understood for the first time why he had run. Not because he did not love them, because he loved himself enough to save his own life. She set the journal down, noticed the envelope on the desk that was not a college acceptance letter, cream-colored, her name written on the front in her mother's handwriting. The January gift. Rachel opened it carefully. My dearest Rachel, if you found this room, you found Jack's journal. I hope you read it. I hope you understand now why your brother left, why he cannot come back, why this house represents not inheritance but trauma to him. I failed Jack. I see that now. In my grief over losing William, I tried to force Jack into being his father. I asked a child to become a man overnight, asked him to sacrifice his future for my comfort, and when he refused, I called it betrayal instead of survival. He was right to leave. I have spent 16 years being angry about that. Only recently have I admitted he was right. The developer who contacted Jack about this property is not a stranger. His name is Richard Sullivan. He owns Horizon Properties, and his nephew, Benjamin Sullivan, is the man you fell in love with in Denver. That is not a coincidence. I hired a private investigator last year because something about Ben felt wrong. The same way food smells wrong right before it spoils. My investigator found that Ben was assigned to scout properties in our region 18 months before you met him. His job was to establish relationships with property owners in Horizon's target acquisition zone. Your relationship began as an assignment. Whether it became something real, I cannot say. Perhaps he fell in love with you genuinely. Perhaps it was always performance. Only he knows the truth. When I tried to tell you this last year, you accused me of being controlling, of seeing conspiracy where there was only my paranoia, of becoming my mother, who drove everyone away with her suspicions. You were partly right. I was terrified of becoming her, terrified of pushing you away the same way I pushed Jack away. So I stopped trying to warn you, let you make your own choices. Hoped I was wrong about Ben, hoped my investigator had made mistakes. But I kept the evidence, just in case you needed it someday. On the USB drive attached to this letter, you will find video of the county council meeting 8 months ago where I testified against rezoning this property. Documents showing Horizon Properties' pattern of acquisition in this township. Emails between Ben and his uncle discussing strategy for acquiring Heartland Farm. Text messages between Ben and you that my investigator was able to access through public Wi-Fi networks. I am not proud of this invasion of privacy, but I needed to know. The truth is this: Horizon Properties has been circling this farm for 5 years. They need our land to complete their development corridor. Without it, their entire project stalls. They have tried money. They have tried pressure. And when those failed, they tried relationship. Ben was instructed to get close to you, to gather information about our family's financial situation, our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities. Whether he was instructed to get you pregnant, I do not know. But the timing of his departure suggests he accomplished his primary objective. He knows now that you will inherit this property. He knows you are alone and scared and financially vulnerable. His uncle will make an offer soon if he has not already. It will seem generous, life-changing money, enough to set you and the baby up comfortably. Take it if you want. I will not judge you. This house is not worth destroying your life over. But if you choose to fight, know this: you are fighting people who have resources and patience and no moral center. They will use your brother's need for money. They will use your pregnancy. They will use every weakness they can find. The February gift will give you ammunition. Look for it in the place where your father kept his faith, in the boots he wore the day he died. I love you, my darling girl. I am sorry for so many things. Sorry I tried to control Jack. Sorry I failed to protect you from Ben. Sorry I will not be there when you need me most. But I am not sorry for fighting to preserve this land. 47 families depend on the aquifer beneath our soil. If Horizon builds their strip mall and parking lots and fast food restaurants, the runoff will contaminate groundwater for a generation. Some things are worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible. Choose wisely, choose for yourself, but choose with eyes open. All my love. Mom. P.S. The baby you are carrying is a girl. I saw it in an ultrasound image you left on your desk when you visited at Easter 3 years ago. You had not told me yet, were not ready to share, but I saw, and I have been preparing ever since. Her name, if you choose it, should be Emma, after your grandmother, after strength that runs in the women of this family like water runs underground. Quiet, essential, life-giving. Rachel sat in the silence of her brother's abandoned room and felt the world reorganize itself around this new understanding. Ben had not loved her, or if he had, it grew from soil poisoned at the root. Their entire relationship was built on deception. The apartment they shared, the future they discussed, the baby now pressing against her ribs, all of it compromised by lies of origin. She inserted the USB drive into her phone, though her hands shook so badly it took 3 tries. The video file loaded slowly over Helen's Wi-Fi that reached just barely to the attic. When it played, Rachel saw her mother standing at a podium in the county courthouse. The video was date-stamped 8 months ago, May 2024. Dorothy looked thinner than Rachel remembered, more fragile, but her voice was steady as she addressed the county council. "My name is Dorothy Hartman. I have lived on the same 80 acres for 41 years, raised 2 children there, buried my husband in the cemetery 3 miles from our front door. I am here tonight to speak against the proposed rezoning of agricultural land in Section 12 for commercial development. I know this council has heard testimony from Horizon Properties about job creation and tax revenue, about bringing economic opportunity to our township. Those are compelling arguments. We need jobs. We need young people to stay instead of leaving for cities. But we also need water. The Hartman Farm sits on the primary recharge zone for the aquifer that supplies 47 families in this township. Geological surveys conducted by the state confirm what farmers have known for generations. Water flows through our soil, filters through layers of limestone and sand, and emerges pure enough to drink without treatment. Commercial development means parking lots, means roof runoff, means chemicals from vehicle maintenance and food service operations, all of it flowing directly into the ground, into the water supply that has sustained this community for 130 years. Horizon Properties presented impact studies claiming their drainage systems will prevent contamination. I hired an independent engineer to review those studies. His analysis, which I am submitting to the council tonight, shows significant flaws in their methodology. The drainage systems they propose are adequate for normal rainfall, but insufficient for the heavy rain events we experience in Iowa Springs. In simple terms, their plan will contaminate our water within 5 years of construction. I am not asking you to value my family's land over progress. I am asking you to value water over money. Because without clean water, no amount of economic development matters. The petition I am submitting contains 847 signatures from residents of this township. Farmers, teachers, nurses, mechanics, people who depend on well water for drinking, cooking, bathing, people who understand that some resources cannot be replaced once they are destroyed. I am asking this council to deny the rezoning request, to protect the aquifer, to choose the long-term health of our community over the short-term promise of tax revenue. Thank you for your time. The video cut to another angle, a man in an expensive suit rising to rebut. The caption identified him as Richard Sullivan, CEO of Horizon Properties. He spoke smoothly about environmental safeguards and economic necessity, about the township dying slowly from lack of opportunity, about Dorothy Hartman being a well-meaning woman clinging to the past. The council debate lasted another hour. Rachel watched it all, saw the vote come down to 4 in favor of development, 3 opposed, with 1 abstention. The rezoning was denied by a single vote. The timestamp on the video was May 14, 2024. Dorothy's death certificate was dated June 8, 2024. 3 weeks and 5 days later, heart attack while gardening, alone. No one there to call for help until it was too late. Rachel paused the video, sat in the cold attic with realization settling over her like snow. Her mother had won the fight, had stopped the rezoning, and then, 3 weeks later, died suddenly from a heart attack that came without warning or previous symptoms. Maybe it was coincidence, stress bringing on cardiac arrest, Grief over a lifetime of loss finally catching up to aging muscle and tired blood. Or maybe it was not coincidence at all. She clicked on the next file. Documents showing Horizon Properties acquisitions in the township over the past 5 years. 6 farms purchased, all within 3 miles of Heartland property. All bought at prices well above market value after the previous owners encountered sudden financial difficulties. The pattern was clear to anyone willing to see it. The emails were worse. From B. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. To R. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. Date March 2023. Subject Target Acquisition Update. Uncle Rick. Met the daughter today. Rachel Hartman, 27, landscape architect. Relocated to Denver 6 months ago. No boyfriend, no ties, ambitious. I am initiating contact through mutual professional networks. Should have preliminary intel within 3 months. Ben. From B. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. To R. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. Date June 2023. Subject Progress Report. We are dating. She trusts me. Has shared details about family finances. Mother living on limited income. Property taxes becoming difficult to maintain. Brother estranged, living in NYC, not contributing. Relationship between mother and daughter is strained. Fault line we can widen when the time comes. Will continue building rapport. Recommend patience. Ben. From B. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. To R. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. Date November 2023. Subject Complication. She is talking about marriage, about her mother meeting me at Christmas. This was not part of the plan. Advise how to proceed. I am in too deep to extract cleanly without raising suspicion. Ben. From R. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. To B. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. Date November 2023. Subject RE Complication. Stay the course. Meet the mother. Gather intel. Do not propose but do not end things. We need access to property details before we make our move. Remember why you are doing this. Remember what I am paying you. Richard. Rachel read every email, every calculated step of a relationship that felt real but was scripted from the start. She got to the final exchange, dated 6 weeks ago, and stopped breathing. From B. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. To R. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. Date October 2024. Subject Unplanned Development. She is pregnant. I am ending things today. This has gone too far. I know what you are going to say, that a baby gives us leverage, that a desperate single mother will sell, but I did not sign up for this. Find another way to get the land. I am done. Ben. From R. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. To B. Sullivan at Horizon Properties, com. Date October 2024. Subject RE Unplanned Development. You are not done until I say you are done. You took my money. You will finish the job. The pregnancy is unfortunate but not catastrophic. Break up with her. Make it her fault for trapping you. Let her desperation season for a few months. When she comes back to Iowa, when the mother dies, when she is alone and broke and terrified, you contact her brother. Offer to help. Position yourself as the solution. Sometimes the longest game wins the biggest prize. Stay close. I will tell you when to move. Richard. Rachel lowered the phone, pressed both hands against her belly where Emma kicked and rolled, blissfully unaware that her existence had been categorized as leverage in someone else's business plan. The attic felt too small suddenly, too cold, too full of ghosts and revelations she was not ready to carry. She descended the ladder carefully, each step requiring concentration because her hands would not stop shaking. In the kitchen, she made more coffee she did not drink, stared out the window at the gray morning, at Helen's house where smoke still rose straight into still air. Her phone rang, Ben's number. After 6 weeks of silence, he was calling. Rachel answered without thinking, heard his voice, smooth and familiar and now completely poisoned. "Rachel, I heard you are in Iowa. Are you at your mother's house?" "How did you know I am here?" "Word travels in small towns. Look, I feel terrible about how things ended between us. My uncle's firm is offering fair market value for your property, $340,000. You should take it, for the baby." For the baby. Like he cared about the baby. Like he had not categorized their child as unfortunate complication in an email to his uncle. "How long were you planning this, Ben?" "Planning what?" "The whole thing, meeting me, dating me, the baby." Silence on the other end. Then carefully, "I do not know what you mean." "Your uncle owns Horizon Properties." More silence, longer this time. "Rachel, you are tired and grieving and pregnant. You are seeing connections that do not exist." "I have the emails, Ben, all of them. My mother hired an investigator. I know everything." She heard him breathe, heard the moment he decided to stop performing. "Then you know I am offering you a way out. Take the money. Start over somewhere else. Give your daughter a life that does not involve struggling to maintain a falling apart farmhouse in the middle of nowhere." "My daughter." "What?" "You said daughter. I never told you it was a girl." Ben did not answer. "How long have you known? Did your investigator tell you? Did you have someone watching me even after you left?" "I am trying to help you, Rachel." "You are trying to buy land for your uncle. I was just the strategy." "It started that way." His voice dropped, but it became real. "What we had was real." "Was it? Was any of it real? Or was I always just an assignment you got too deep into?" "I loved you." Past tense. Thank you for the honesty. "Rachel, be smart about this. You cannot win against Horizon. They have resources, lawyers, patience. Take the offer. Walk away before this gets ugly." "Or what? You will make it ugly." "I am trying to protect you." "From your uncle or from you?" Ben hung up. Rachel stood in her mother's kitchen with morning light cold against the windows and understood that she was in a fight she had not chosen but could not avoid. Horizon Properties wanted this land, would use Jack's desperation and her isolation and every possible weakness to get it. And Ben, the man she thought she loved, the father of her child, was working for them still. The baby kicked hard. A protest or encouragement? Rachel chose to believe encouragement. She went to the barn. The February gift was waiting in the workshop, exactly where her mother said it would be, in her father's work boots, the ones he wore the day he died, the ones that still carried field dirt 16 years old. Rachel reached inside the left boot, felt paper, pulled out an envelope and a small cloth bag. The envelope contained another letter from her mother and a soil analysis report. The cloth bag held seeds, spring wheat, saved from her father's last harvest, never planted, preserved. "My dearest Rachel, February is the month of waiting, of seeds that no spring is coming even when the ground is still frozen, of faith that what is planted will grow even when you cannot see evidence yet. The seeds in this bag are from your father's final harvest. He saved them the week before he died, planned to plant them that next spring in the South 40 acres. He never got the chance. I could not bear to plant them without him, so I saved them, kept them in climate-controlled storage, waiting for the right time, the right hands. I think that time is now, that you are the right hands. If you choose to stay, plant these seeds when the ground thaws, watch them grow, harvest them in your daughter's first summer. Make bread from wheat your father saved, you planted, your daughter will taste. That is legacy, not land ownership, not property value. The taste of bread made from seeds that survived winter. The soil report attached shows what this land is, what makes it worth fighting for. Your father spent 40 years building this soil. Crop rotation, cover crops, minimal chemicals. He was practicing sustainable farming before it had a name, before it was trendy. He did it because he believed land is borrowed from future generations, that our job is to leave it better than we found it. The agronomist who wrote this report told me our soil is in the top 5% in the county, that it represents 4 decades of careful stewardship, that paving it over would be, in his words, agricultural tragedy. I think your father would want you to know that, would want you to understand that when Horizon offers you money for this land, they are not just buying 80 acres. They are buying 40 years of your father's work, 40 years of building something that cannot be rebuilt. Money spent is gone, soil destroyed is destroyed, choose accordingly. The March gift is in the barn workshop, behind the lumber rack. You will know it when you see it. I love you beyond measure. Mom. Rachel unfolded the soil analysis, technical language about organic matter content and nitrogen levels and soil structure, but the summary was clear. This was exceptional farmland, the kind that takes generations to build and 1 generation to destroy. She crossed the barn to the workshop, found the lumber rack exactly where it had always been, reached behind it. Her hand touched something solid, she pulled. A rocking chair, 3/4 finished, beautiful craftsmanship, made from oak that her father had milled himself from a tree that fell in a storm 20 years ago. On the seat, another envelope and a folder of bank statements. The letter was brief. March is for building. I started this chair when I first suspected you were pregnant, when you called me last spring with that particular tone in your voice. My hands got too weak to finish it, but Helen's son Thomas is a carpenter. He will complete it if you ask. We'll stain it and seal it and make it perfect. This chair is for you and Emma. Yes, Emma. I have known since Easter 3 years ago when I saw the ultrasound image on your desk. You were not ready to share yet, but I saw, and I have been preparing. The bank statements show what I sacrificed to give you this choice. I took a reverse mortgage, paid off the house, lived on $940 a month from Social Security, put everything else toward property taxes, medical bills, and the cashier's check made out to you, $12,000, for baby Emma Hartman. I knew you would need help, would need resources, would need something to fall back on when things got hard. Use it wisely, use it to fight or to flee. Either way, it is yours. Rachel opened the bank statements, saw evidence of her mother's final years laid out in numbers, saw the reverse mortgage payment that cleared the property, saw the meager monthly deposits, saw automatic payments for utilities and taxes and medical bills, saw the final entry, a cashier's check for $12,000, made out 3 days before Dorothy died, while she was having her first heart attack, while she was dying. She had used her last strength to give Rachel options. The baby kicked, hard enough to hurt. Rachel pressed her hand against the spot, felt movement beneath her palm. I know, we have decisions to make. Her phone buzzed, text from Jack. The appraiser is coming tomorrow at 10 a.m. Be there or do not, but this sale is happening. Rachel texted back, "We need to talk. About Dad. About why you really left." Jack's response came immediately, "There is nothing to talk about. I made my choice 16 years ago. Now you make yours, but make it fast. I need this sale." Rachel looked at the unfinished rocking chair, at the seeds her father saved, at the soil report proving what this land was worth beyond money. She thought about her mother standing at a podium 8 months ago, fighting to protect water for 47 families, dying 3 weeks later, leaving breadcrumbs for Rachel to follow. She thought about Ben and his carefully constructed romance, about Richard Sullivan and his patient acquisition strategy, about Jack and his desperate need for cash he would not explain. And she thought about Emma, the daughter growing inside her, the next generation of Hartman women, the one who would inherit whatever Rachel chose to preserve or surrender. The decision was not about money or land or even justice. It was about what kind of woman Rachel wanted Emma to know her mother had been. Someone who fought when fighting seemed impossible, or someone who took the easy money and walked away. Rachel picked up her phone, dialed the number on the soil analysis report. The agronomist answered on the second ring. "This is Rachel Hartman, Dorothy's daughter. I have some questions about sustainable farming, about CSAs, about whether 80 acres could support a viable agricultural business." On the other end, a surprised pause. Then, "Ms. Hartman, your mother and I discussed this exact topic 6 months ago. She had plans, detailed plans. I would be happy to share them with you." Rachel looked out the barn window at frozen fields waiting for spring, at land that had fed 3 generations of her family, at soil her father built and her mother defended and her daughter might inherit. "Tell me everything." The agronomist's voice crackled through the phone, warm with the kind of enthusiasm that comes from talking about work you love. His name was Robert Chen, and he had spent 3 hours with Dorothy 6 months before she died, mapping out a business plan that transformed 80 acres of farmland into something that could sustain a family without destroying the soil that fed them. Community-supported agriculture, CSA. The model was simple in concept, complex in execution. Families paid upfront for a share of the harvest, received weekly boxes of vegetables through the growing season, shared the risk and reward of farming, built relationship between people who ate food and people who grew it. "Your mother had it all figured out," Robert said. "She knew she would not be here to see it happen, but she wanted you to have a roadmap, something concrete, not just sentimental attachment to land but actual economic viability." He promised to email the full business plan, projected costs and revenue, list of local families who had already expressed interest, network of other CSA farmers willing to mentor. By the time Rachel hung up, her hand was cramping from taking notes, and her mind was spinning with possibility that felt both terrifying and inevitable. She could do this, maybe, with help, with community, with the kind of stubborn determination her mother had possessed in quantities that bordered on supernatural. The question was whether she had inherited that determination, or just the land it was meant to protect. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Rachel checked the time. Nearly noon. She had been in the barn for 3 hours, talking to Robert, reading her mother's notes, doing math on the back of seed packets about how many tomato plants you could fit in a quarter-acre and still leave room for squash. Helen stood on the porch with 4 other women, all of them carrying dishes covered with foil or plastic wrap. They ranged in age from 50s to 80s, dressed in practical winter coats and sensible boots, faces weathered by decades of Iowa sun and wind. "We brought lunch," Helen announced, not asking permission, just walking in the way neighbors do when permission is assumed through decades of familiarity. "And we brought ourselves." Time you met the people your mother trusted most. The kitchen filled with the bustle of women who knew how to move in shared space. Coats came off. Food was arranged on the counter. Coffee was made without asking where anything was kept because these women had been in this kitchen before, many times, when Dorothy was alive and the house was not so empty. Helen made introductions with the efficiency of someone conducting a meeting. This is Susan Porter, Quilting Circle, known your mother since elementary school. Susan was small and bird-boned, with silver hair cut short and reading glasses hanging from a beaded chain around her neck. She gripped Rachel's hand with surprising strength. "Your mother taught me to read," she said simply. "Second grade. I had dyslexia and the school had given up. Dorothy stayed after class every day for 6 months, turned me into a reader. I have been trying to repay that debt ever since." Marie Blackwell, church elder, organized every potluck and funeral meal for 30 years. Marie was tall and solid, the kind of woman who looked like she could birth a calf and bake a wedding cake in the same morning. Her handshake was firm. "Your mother drove me to chemotherapy appointments, 60 miles each way, twice a week for 8 months, never missed once, never let me pay for gas, said friendship is not transactional." Linda Santos, book club teacher at the high school. Linda had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the tired look of someone who spent their days trying to convince teenagers that literature mattered. "Dorothy tutored my daughter when the school wanted to hold her back, taught her to read despite severe dyslexia. My daughter is in medical school now. That is your mother's legacy." And Joyce Hartman, no relation to you by blood, but Dorothy considered her family anyway. Joyce was the oldest, mid-80s probably, with the kind of face that had been beautiful once and was still striking in the way aged trees are striking. She moved slowly but with purpose. "Your mother paid my grandson's community college tuition, anonymously. I only found out after she died. $15,000 over 2 years. Never asked for thanks or recognition. Just believed in a boy who needed someone to believe in him." The women settled around the kitchen table like they belonged there. Like this was ritual reenacted 1,000 times. Rachel recognized it suddenly. This was Dorothy's circle, her chosen family, the network of women who had sustained each other through decades of small-town life with its particular joys and brutalities. "We know about the developer," Helen said without preamble. "We know about Jack pushing for sale. We know you are 7 months pregnant and alone and probably terrified. We are here to tell you that you are not as alone as you think." Susan pulled papers from her bag. "This is a petition. 430 signatures so far. People pledging to support a CSA if you start one. Committed members willing to pay up front for shares. This is not theoretical. This is real demand." Marie added her contribution. "The church has a commercial kitchen we barely use. You can rent it for processing and canning, below market rate. Pastor Tom already approved it." Linda slid a folder across the table. "These are lesson plans for agricultural education. If you do this, if you really farm this land, my students could learn sustainable agriculture hands-on. Internship credit. Free labor for you. Real-world experience for them. Your mother and I discussed it before she died." Joyce simply placed a check on the table, $10,000, made out to Rachel Hartman. "For startup costs," she said. "Your mother gave to my family when we needed it. I am returning the favor. No repayment expected. Just keep the land in production." Rachel stared at the check, at the petition, at these women who had loved her mother and were now extending that love to include a daughter they barely knew. "Why are you doing this?" The women exchanged glances, some communication passing between them that needed no words. Because your mother asked us to, Helen said. Before she died, she gathered us, told us what might happen, that you would come home eventually, that Jack would push for sale, that you would need support to fight. She made us promise to be here when you needed us. She knew, Rachel whispered. She knew all of this would happen. Your mother was many things, Susan said gently. Sentimental was not one of them. She was strategic, practical. She saw patterns, made plans. Your mother spent her last 6 months preparing for a future she would not see. Every action calculated to give you the best possible chance to succeed if you chose to fight. Did she know she was going to die? Rachel asked. The heart attack, was it really sudden? Helen's face went carefully neutral, the kind of neutral that is its own answer. Your mother had a heart attack 4 months before the one that killed her. Small, survivable. The doctor told her to reduce stress. She testified at the county council meeting anyway, fought Horizon Properties publicly, made enemies of powerful people. And 3 weeks later she was dead. The kitchen went quiet. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Somewhere in the house, a pipe creaked. You think someone killed her, Rachel said. Not a question, a statement. Marie chose her words carefully. We think your mother made powerful people very angry. We think stress can kill, especially when someone is already vulnerable. We think the timeline is suspicious, but we cannot prove anything. The death certificate says natural causes. The autopsy was routine. There is no evidence of foul play. Just coincidence, Joyce said. The kind of coincidence that happens when you stand between rich men and what they want. Rachel felt cold spreading through her chest. Her mother had fought, had won, and had died for it, maybe from stress, maybe from something worse. They would never know which. I am not brave like she was. Susan reached across the table, gripped Rachel's hand. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite fear. Your mother was terrified her last months, terrified of dying, terrified of leaving you alone, terrified she had not done enough. She acted anyway. You have that same strength, Linda added. You are here. You are considering fighting. That is bravery. The women stayed through lunch, ate casseroles and talked about Dorothy. Not the saint people become after death, but the real woman. Stubborn, opinionated, sometimes wrong but never uncertain. A woman who had lived her values so completely that her absence left a hole in the community's fabric. As they prepared to leave, Helen lingered. There is something else you should know. Jack arrives tomorrow with an appraiser. He is not just trying to sell. He is desperate to sell. We do not know why yet, but desperation makes people dangerous. How do you know he is desperate? Because he called me last week, asked if I would testify that the house is in disrepair, that it is not worth saving, that your mother would want you to take the money and start fresh somewhere else. What did you say? I told him I would not perjure myself for him or anyone else, that this house is in good condition, that his mother spent her final months maintaining it precisely so you would have options. How did he take that? Helen's smile was grim, about as well as you would expect. He called me an interfering old woman and hung up, but the fact that he asked tells me he is more desperate than he is letting on. After the women left, Rachel climbed to the attic again, found the April envelope where her mother had said it would be, in the garden shed, tucked inside a clay pot. The envelope contained a garden journal, 40 years of entries documenting every plant, every harvest, every success and failure. The handwriting changed over the decades, youthful enthusiasm maturing into experienced precision. The final entries were dated just days before Dorothy's death. Planted perennials along the south fence, daffodils for early spring color, peonies for late spring abundance, black-eyed Susans for summer reliability, chose varieties that will naturalize and spread. By the time Emma is old enough to notice, they will have multiplied into drifts of color. I will not see them bloom, but she will. That is enough. Also planted the winter squash seeds William saved in 2012. His favorite variety, Blue Hubbard, took me 16 years to find the courage to plant what he preserved, but now seems right. Rachel will harvest them in Emma's first autumn, will make soup the way I taught her, will feed her daughter food grown from seeds her grandfather saved. This is how we persist, not through monuments or money, through seeds and recipes and knowledge passed hand to hand. Rachel closed the journal, held it against her chest, felt the weight of 40 years of accumulated wisdom about soil and seasons and the patient work of growing things. The May envelope was tucked into the back of the journal. Inside, 3 cemetery plot deeds, her father's occupied since 2008, her mother's waiting to be used, and a third unmarked. The letter explained, "My dearest Rachel, this is the May gift, a choice about belonging. The third plot is yours if you want it, if you choose Cedar Falls as home, as the place you will raise Emma, as the ground that will eventually hold your bones. Or leave it empty, a reminder that you are free to choose your own path, to be buried somewhere else, somewhere you choose, somewhere that becomes home in ways Iowa never was. I bought 3 plots 40 years ago. Your father and I, young and optimistic, planning for a future that felt infinite. We assumed our children would want to be buried near us. Assumed geography and biology would bind us together across generations. Jack taught me that assumption was arrogant. He will be buried in New York, I expect, or scattered somewhere far from Iowa. That is his choice, and I respect it even if I do not understand it. You might make the same choice, might build a life somewhere else, might die in a place that feels more like home than the place you were born. That is okay. Home is not where you are from. It is where you choose to plant yourself. The plots are paid for, maintained in perpetuity. Use them or do not. Either way, you are loved. Mom. Rachel folded the letter, tucked it back into the envelope with the deeds. 3 plots, 3 choices, stay or go, root or wander, become part of this soil or choose different ground. She did not know yet which she would choose. The appraiser arrived at 10 the next morning in a silver sedan with Minnesota plates. Jack pulled up behind him in a rental car, expensive coat over expensive suit, looking every inch the successful New York banker he was supposed to be. Except Rachel could see the cracks now. The suit was tailored but worn at the cuffs. The shoes were polished but the leather was creased from years of wear. The watch was impressive but not the brand he used to prefer. Everything about Jack screamed maintained appearance over actual wealth. He saw Rachel waiting on the porch, and his expression went carefully blank. "You came. I live here now. For how much longer? That depends on you." The appraiser was a middle-aged man with a clipboard and a digital camera and the bored efficiency of someone who looked at houses as collections of problems to be priced. He walked the perimeter taking photos, noted the missing roof tiles, the sagging porch, the peeling paint, made marks on his forms with mechanical precision. Jack followed him, pointed out every flaw, every repair needed, every reason the property was worth less than asking price. Rachel watched from the kitchen window, waited. When they finished the exterior survey, she met them at the door. "Before you assess the interior, there is something you should see." She led them to the barn, to the workshop, showed them the unfinished rocking chair, the detailed craftsmanship, the quality of wood and joinery. "My mother made this while she was dying, for her granddaughter. It represents about 80 hours of work in her final months. The appraiser looked uncomfortable. This is very nice, but it does not affect property value. It affects why the property is being sold or not sold. She showed them the garden journal, 40 years of entries, the soil analysis, the business plan for CSA agriculture. This land produces more than property value. It produces food, community, legacy. Those things have worth beyond what you can put in a spreadsheet. Jack's face had gone red. Rachel, this is not helping. The appraiser needs to do his job. His job is to assign value. I am showing him what has value here. She walked them through the house, showed them not the flaws but the history. The growth chart marked on the kitchen door frame. Her father's study preserved exactly as he left it. The attic room where Jack had built his sanctuary before trauma drove him away. That last one made Jack stop walking, made him stand in the doorway of his 16-year-old self's escape pod and stare at posters of mountains he had never climbed and books he had never finished reading. Why did she keep this? Rachel's voice was gentle because she understood why you left. She did not agree with it, but she understood. The appraiser finished his assessment, gave them a number that was fair but not generous. The property was worth what Jack said it was worth, maybe a little more if you found the right buyer. After he left, Jack and Rachel sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they had eaten breakfast as children, where their father had read the newspaper every morning, where their mother had paid bills and planned meals and kept the household running through sheer force of will. I need this sale, Jack said, not want, need. Why? He laughed, bitter sound. Why do you think? Because I am broke. Because New York is expensive and finance jobs are scarce and I have been living on credit and lies for 3 years. Because I owe people money I do not have. How much? Jack met her eyes, enough that if I do not pay soon I lose everything. My apartment, my reputation, any chance of getting another job in finance. How much, Jack? $180,000. Rachel felt the number settle in her stomach like a stone. That much. That was why he needed the sale so badly. Not greed, survival. Who do you owe? Credit cards mostly, some personal loans, and $50,000 to Horizon Properties. Rachel's head snapped up. What? Jack would not meet her eyes. They approached me 4 years ago, offered me $50,000 just to convince Mom to sell. I took it. You took money from the people trying to steal our land. I thought Mom would be reasonable, thought she would take their offer, move to a condo, live comfortably. Instead, she dug in, fought them, made it impossible. So you pressured her, called every month, made her last years miserable because you needed her to sell to cover your gambling debt. It was not gambling, it was poor financial decisions. It was betrayal. Jack slammed his hand on the table. You do not get to judge me. You left too, went to college, built a career, only came home for holidays. Where were you when Mom was dying, when she was fighting Horizon alone? Where were you? I was being lied to by a man who was paid to seduce me so his uncle could get this land. So do not talk to me about betrayal. The kitchen went quiet. 2 siblings facing each other across the table where they had been fed and loved and taught how to be human. Both of them broken in different ways. Both of them trying to survive choices they regretted. Jack spoke first, his voice smaller. I am sorry for the pressure, for taking their money, for not being here when she needed me. I am sorry. Sorry does not fix this. No, but maybe we can. How? Rachel pulled out the business plan Robert had emailed. The CSA proposal. the projections showing modest but real income from sustainable agriculture. Mom had a plan not to sell, to farm, to make this land productive without destroying it. I am considering trying. You are 7 months pregnant. I have help. The community wants this. They are ready to support it. Jack studied the numbers, his banker brain processing revenue projections and startup costs and risk analysis. This could work, maybe, with perfect weather and no disasters, and if you can find enough labor and if the market does not shift. Too many ifs. Every business has ifs. Most businesses do not require the owner to be 7 months pregnant and farming 80 acres alone. I would not be alone. Jack looked at her, really looked, saw not his little sister but a woman who had driven through winter to fight for something she had not known she wanted until it was threatened. What do you need from me? Sign over your half of the inheritance. Let me do this without fighting me. And my debt. Rachel pulled out the check Joyce had given her, $10,000, and Dorothy's cashier's check for $12,000, and the number Robert had mentioned for startup costs with slim margins. I will pay off your Horizon debt, $38,000 from a loan against the property. That gets you out from under them. The rest you figure out yourself. That does not solve my full problem. No, but it solves the part that makes you vulnerable to Horizon. The rest is your mess to clean up. Why would you do this for me, after what I did? Because Mom would have, and because you are my brother, and because I need to believe family is stronger than money. Jack stared at the checks, at the business plan, at the sister he had not really known since she was 9 years old and he was 17, and both of them were children trying to survive a father's death in different ways. I do not deserve this. Probably not, but deserving and needing are different things. He nodded slowly. If I do this, if I sign over my half, I want to help, part-time, remote work from here sometimes. I cannot farm, but I can manage finances, structure the business properly, make sure you do not lose everything. Why? Because I owe Mom that much, and because maybe I do not have to be terrified of this place forever. Rachel reached across the table, gripped her brother's hand, felt 40 years of distance begin to close. Deal. They were drawing up the papers when the rock came through the window. It shattered the kitchen window in an explosion of glass and winter air, hit the floor, rolled to a stop at Rachel's feet. Paper was wrapped around it, secured with rubber band. Jack got to the window first, looked out, saw tail lights disappearing down the road, truck, dark color, no plates visible. Rachel unwrapped the paper with shaking hands. The message was typed, anonymous, threatening. Stop asking questions. Sell the land, take the money, leave town. This is your only warning. Jack read over her shoulder. We need to call the sheriff. Rachel thought about Helen's warning, about small-town corruption being casual favors and looking the other way. No, we document this, take photos, save the evidence, but we do not involve local law enforcement yet. Why not? Because I do not know who we can trust. Jack pulled out his phone, started photographing the rock, the note, the broken window. Rachel watched her brother work with methodical precision and realized something had shifted. He was not running anymore, not from this house, not from their history, not from the fight that was coming. Helen appeared at the door minutes later, breathless from running across the yard. I saw what happened. Are you hurt? Just scared. Good, use the fear. Let it make you sharp instead of paralyzed. More cars were arriving. Susan, Marie, Linda, Joyce, the network mobilizing without being called. Within an hour, the window was covered with plywood, the broken glass swept up, the rock and note sealed in a plastic bag and documented with enough photos to satisfy a forensics team. The women stood in the kitchen that smelled of winter air and broken glass, and something that felt almost like solidarity. "This is what they do," Susan said. "Intimidate, threaten, make you feel unsafe in your own home. They are counting on you being alone and scared." "But I am not alone." "No, you are not." Marie pulled out her phone. "I am calling Pastor Tom. We are organizing a rotation. Someone will be here at night, every night, until this is resolved." "You do not have to do that." "Yes," Joyce said firmly. "We do. Your mother stood up to them, got herself killed for it maybe. We are not letting that happen to you." Rachel looked at these women who had loved her mother, who were choosing to love her by extension, who were transforming from neighbors into allies into something that felt like family. "Thank you." Helen squeezed her shoulder. "Thank Dorothy. She built this network over 40 years. We are just honoring her investment." After the women left, Jack and Rachel sat in the living room. The boarded window was a dark square against the wall, a reminder that this fight was real, that people were willing to escalate. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Jack asked. "It is not too late to take their offer, walk away, start over somewhere safe." Rachel placed her hand on her belly, felt Emma moving beneath her palm. "Mom planted perennials for Emma to discover when she is old enough to notice. Daffodils that will bloom when she is 3 months old, peonies at 1 year, black-eyed Susans every summer after. She planned for Emma's future here, on this land." "That does not mean you have to stay." "No, but it means someone believed we should have the choice." Jack nodded. "Then we fight together this time." Together. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across frozen fields. In 3 months the ground would thaw, seeds could be planted, the cycle would begin again, growth following dormancy, spring following winter, life persisting despite everything. Rachel went to the kitchen, found the recipe box, pulled out the card marked April. "April. For when you plant hope." Dorothy's gardening wisdom. The note was in her mother's handwriting, recent ink, written in final weeks when hands were failing but determination was absolute. April is for planting, for putting seeds in cold ground and trusting they will find warmth, for faith that seems foolish until the first green shoots appear. If you are reading this in April, you have chosen to stay, to fight, to build something instead of walking away from ruins. I am proud of you. Plant the wheat seeds your father saved. In the South 40, ask Thomas to disc the field. Plant in rows 18 inches apart. Water if the spring is dry. Wait. In 90 days, the wheat will be ready. Harvest it the way your father would have, with hands and sweat and gratitude for what the earth provides. Make bread from that wheat, feed it to Emma. Taste your father's last harvest in your daughter's first summer. That is legacy, not land ownership, not property value. The taste of bread made from seeds that survived winter. The June gift will help you understand what you are really fighting for. Look for it where community gathers, where faith is practiced, where your father found peace. I love you beyond measure. Now go plant something. Rachel folded the card carefully, looked out the boarded window at fields waiting for spring. She did not know if she could do this, did not know if she was strong enough or stubborn enough or brave enough. But she knew she was going to try. For her mother who had prepared the way, for her father who had built soil worth protecting, for Emma who deserved to know where she came from, for Jack who needed to heal the trauma that had driven him away. And for herself, for the woman she was becoming in this house full of ghosts and gifts and the kind of love that persisted beyond death. Tomorrow she would start making calls, would begin organizing the CSA, would take the first real steps toward building instead of inheriting. Tonight she would sleep in her childhood bed with her brother in the room next door for the first time in 16 years, would rest knowing that Helen was keeping watch from next door, that the community was rallying, that she was not alone. The baby kicked, strong and insistent. Rachel pressed her hand against the spot. "I know we have work to do." Outside, stars emerged in a cold, clear sky. Inside, the house settled into its familiar nighttime symphony, radiators clanking, timbers creaking, the sound of a structure holding weight, sheltering life, persisting through another winter. Spring was coming, and with it the real fight would begin. Rachel woke at 3 in the morning to pain that felt like her body was being torn in half, sharp, radiating from her lower back through her abdomen, stealing her breath. She lay in the darkness of her childhood bedroom, one hand pressed against her belly, counting seconds between contractions. Too soon, 6 weeks too soon. Emma was not supposed to arrive until late January. This was only the second week of December. The pain came again, harder, closer. Rachel groped for her phone on the nightstand, knocked it to the floor, heard it clatter against wood. Another contraction hit before she could retrieve it. This one made her cry out. Jack was through the door in seconds, pulling on a shirt, hair wild from sleep. "What is wrong?" "The baby. I think the baby is coming." He had the phone, was dialing 911, was speaking in the calm voice he used for crisis management, the banker training kicking in even as his hands shook. "My sister is in labor, 7 months pregnant, contractions 2 minutes apart. We need an ambulance at 4847 Maple Road." The dispatcher's voice crackled through speakerphone. "Cedar Falls is 40 minutes from you. I can have an ambulance there in 35 if they leave now. Can you get her to town faster?" Jack looked at Rachel, at the pain written across her face, at the wet stain spreading across the bedsheets that meant her water had broken. "We are coming to you." He helped her down the stairs, each step in agony, got her into his rental car, covered her with blankets from the hall closet, was pulling out of the driveway when Helen's porch light came on. The older woman appeared in her doorway, took one look at Jack's face through the car window, and understood. "I am calling ahead, telling them to be ready." Rachel pressed her forehead against the cold car window as Jack drove too fast through empty country roads, fields frozen under starlight, farmhouses dark, the world still sleeping while her body tried to expel life too early into winter cold. "How far apart are they?" The contractions, less than 2 minutes now. "Breathe, just breathe." "I am trying." The hospital appeared like salvation, small regional facility that served 5 counties. Emergency entrance lit up, 2 nurses waiting with wheelchair. They had Rachel inside and assessed within minutes. The attending physician was young, too young for the gravity in his voice. "You are in active labor, 6 centimeters dilated. The baby is coming today whether we want her to or not." "She is too early." 34 weeks is early but viable. We have a NICU. We are equipped for this. But I need you to stay calm. Stress makes everything harder." A contraction hit that made calm impossible. Rachel gripped the bed rail, heard herself making sounds that did not seem human. Jack stood by the door looking helpless. The nurses worked around him with efficient kindness. Monitors were attached, IV placed, questions asked and answered about medical history and allergies and when she last ate. The pain came in waves now, cresting, breaking, offering brief respites before building again. Time became elastic. Seconds stretched into hours, hours compressed into heartbeats. Somewhere in the blur of pain and medical intervention, a voice she recognized. Rachel. She turned her head, saw Ben standing in the doorway, looking rumpled and uncertain and completely out of place. "What are you doing here?" "I heard word travels. I needed to talk to you." Jack moved to block him. "Now is not the time." "It has to be now." Ben's voice was urgent, raw in a way Rachel had never heard. "Before I lose my nerve." The nurse intervened. "Family only in the delivery room." "He is the father," Rachel heard herself say. "Let him in." Jack looked at her like she had lost her mind. Maybe she had. Maybe pain made you stupid. Or maybe she just needed to hear whatever Ben had driven through the night to say. The nurse left them. Jack stayed by the door like a guard. Ben approached the bed carefully. "I am sorry for everything, for lying, for the assignment, for walking away when you needed me." Rachel waited, pain building again. No time for his apologies. "My uncle's firm, Horizon Properties, they cut corners. The strip mall in Millerton is already cracking. 8 months old and the foundation is failing. They used substandard materials, pocketed the difference." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because if they build on your land, they will do the same. The aquifer contamination will not be accidental. It will be inevitable. Cheap construction, poor drainage, runoff going straight into groundwater." A contraction hit. Rachel gasped, gripped the bed rail. Ben reached for her hand without thinking. She let him take it, squeezed hard enough to hurt. When the pain passed, she looked at him. "Why now? Why tell me this now?" "Because I am a coward who could not tell you before. But I cannot let my daughter grow up drinking poisoned water because I stayed quiet." "Your daughter." "Our daughter." Past tense to present tense. The grammar of relationship status changing in a hospital room while their child tried to be born too soon. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I want to give you something. Evidence. Emails, construction reports, proof of the fraud, enough to stop them if you use it right." "And then what?" "You ride off into the sunset feeling noble." "Then I testify, against my uncle, against the firm, against everyone who paid me to lie to you." "That will destroy your career." Ben's laugh was hollow. "My career was built on lies anyway. Maybe destruction is what I deserve." Rachel studied his face, saw exhaustion, shame, something that might be genuine remorse or might be another performance. She could not tell anymore. "If you mean this, if you really want to help, there is something you can do." "Anything." "Be her father, not through words, through action. Show up, consistently, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." "I will." "We will see." Another contraction, stronger. The monitor beside the bed started beeping urgently. The doctor appeared with grim efficiency. "Baby is in distress. Heart rate dropping. We need to do an emergency cesarean." Everything happened fast after that. Rachel being wheeled into surgery. Jack and Ben left behind in the hallway. Anesthesia numbing her from chest down. Bright lights. Masked faces. The feeling of pressure without pain as they cut through skin and muscle to retrieve life growing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then crying, thin, reedy, the sound of lungs that were not quite ready taking their first reluctant breaths. "It is a girl, 5 pounds 3 ounces, small but fighting." They held Emma up for Rachel to see. Tiny, red, furious at being evicted early from her warm home into this cold, bright world. Then she was gone, whisked away to NICU. surrounded by specialists who would keep her alive while her lungs finished developing. Rachel lay on the operating table while they stitched her back together and felt emptiness where fullness had been. Heard her daughter crying in another room, could not hold her, could not comfort her, could only trust strangers to keep her alive. In recovery, Helen appeared, somehow having driven 40 minutes in pre-dawn darkness, bringing practical comfort in the form of clean clothes and homemade soup, and the kind of steady presence that required no words. She is beautiful. Helen showed Rachel photos the nurses had taken. Emma in an incubator, tubes and wires monitoring every breath. So small, so impossibly fragile. Can I see her? Tomorrow when you are stronger, tonight you rest. But Rachel could not rest. Lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about her daughter alone in a plastic box, about the fight waiting when she was strong enough to return to it, about the 30 days that had become 23 days, about property taxes and threatened foreclosure and all the weight that did not disappear just because a baby was born early. Jack appeared at dawn, brought coffee, sat in the chair beside her bed. She is going to be okay. The doctors say her lungs are strong. Another week maybe and she can come home. Home, the word felt strange, aspirational, like something that might exist if they could defend it. Did Ben leave? No, he is in the waiting room. Been there all night, drinking terrible coffee and filling out paperwork to be added to Emma's birth certificate. Why? Jack shrugged. Maybe he meant what he said, or maybe he is still performing. Time will tell. They sat in silence, brother and sister, both of them exhausted, both of them changed by the night in ways they were still processing. I called Mom's lawyer, Jack said, told him about the threats, the rock through the window, asked what our legal options are. And he said document everything. Do not engage with threats, and get ready for horizon to escalate. They know we are vulnerable now. New baby, you recovering from surgery, they will push. Let them push. The door opened. A sheriff's deputy, young, uncomfortable, holding an envelope with official seals. Rachel Hartman. That is me. I am sorry to do this, especially now, but I have a court order to deliver. He handed her the envelope, left quickly, like he did not want to be associated with what it contained. Rachel opened it with shaking hands, read legal language that boiled down to nightmare. The county tax assessor had filed emergency lien. Property tax payment had bounced. Penalties added. Total due $14,200. Due in 72 hours or property goes to foreclosure auction. That is impossible. Rachel's voice was hollow. Mom prepaid the property taxes through December. Jack took the document, read it twice, went pale. She did. The taxes she prepaid covered calendar year 2024, but this is different. This is the annual property tax bill for 2025. It auto-drafted from her checking account on January 1st. The bill I am looking at here is dated January 2, 2025. Rachel's mind raced. We are in December 2024 still. The county assesses property taxes a year in advance. Mom had it set up to autopay every January 1st for the coming year. When I closed her checking account to consolidate the estate, I stopped that automatic payment. The 2025 tax bill tried to draft, bounced, and triggered immediate penalties. You what? I did not know. I thought I was being thorough. I transferred her savings and prepaid amounts to a new consolidated estate account. But I did not realize the auto payment for next year's taxes was set up separately in the old checking account. When that account closed, the payment failed. Rachel felt cold spreading through her chest. You stopped Mom's tax payment for 2025. We owe $14,000 for next year's taxes, in 3 days. How much do we have? $840 in my account. The $12,000 from Mom is in a check that needs 7 business days to clear. Joyce's $10,000 is the same. We cannot access any of it in time. Jack pulled out his phone, started making calls. His bank, other banks, anyone who might give him a personal loan fast enough. Every call ended the same way. His credit was destroyed. No one would lend to him. Rachel watched her brother try and fail to fix what he had broken, felt anger and grief and exhaustion pulling at her like undertow. After the 5th rejection, Jack set down his phone. I destroyed this. I am so sorry. Sorry does not pay taxes. I know. The next 24 hours passed in a blur. Helen and the network mobilized. Pastor Tom organized an emergency fundraiser at the church. People brought cash, checks, whatever they could spare. The Quilting Circle set up a bake sale. The high school agricultural program donated money from their club funds. By evening, they had raised $6,000. By midnight, $8,400. By dawn of the second day, with 24 hours remaining, they were still $5,800 short. Rachel sat in the hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and fear, held Emma for the first time. 5 pounds of fury and hunger and the absolute certainty that the universe revolved around her needs. She nursed with determined efficiency, fell asleep against Rachel's chest, tiny fist curled against bare skin. Helen watched from the chair beside the bed. We will find a way. How? We are out of time, out of options. Your mother always said the answer appears when you are ready to see it. Rachel looked down at her sleeping daughter, thought about Dorothy planting perennials Emma would discover when she was old enough to notice. About 40 years of garden journals and soil built one season at a time. About gifts hidden throughout a house and property because a dying woman believed in preparation over prayer. The gifts, there are still 3 I have not found: October, November, December. Helen sat forward. Your mother said October would be found where miracles grow. The garden where she died. Where she was planting something for Emma when her heart gave out. Rachel looked at her daughter, at the baby she could not take home if there was no home to take her to. Jack, I need you to go to the house, to the garden where Mom collapsed. Start digging. Digging for what? I do not know, but Mom said October is where miracles grow, and we need a miracle. Jack left. Helen stayed, rocked Emma when she fussed, brought Rachel ice chips and encouragement, waited. 2 hours later, Jack called. I found something. Waterproof box, buried 18 inches deep where Mom was planting that day. What is in it? Papers, old papers, stock certificates. Bring them now. Jack arrived covered in dirt, hands shaking as he passed Rachel the box. Inside, wrapped in plastic preservation sheets, 50 stock certificates. Old-fashioned paper shares in a farmland real estate investment trust, purchased in 1985, 500 shares total. Rachel pulled out her phone, searched the stock symbol with fingers that trembled, found current price. $73 per share. Jack did the math faster than she could. $36,500. More than enough to pay the taxes, more than enough to fund startup costs for the CSA, more than enough to prove that Dorothy had prepared for this exact emergency. The October envelope was in the box. Rachel opened it. My dearest Rachel and Emma, if you found this, you are facing financial crisis, probably tax-related, probably caused by some accident or oversight or malicious intervention. It does not matter which. What matters is you have solution in your hands. These stocks were purchased with your father's life insurance. I could not bear to spend that money on myself. It felt like profiting from his death. So I invested it in farmland preservation. Let it grow. Saved it for when you would need it most. This money comes from the land. Use it for the land. Pay whatever debts threaten our home. Start the CSA. Build the life I could not build but believed you could. The November gift will give you foundation. The December gift will give you peace. Both are in the house, in places that held our family together. Find them when you are ready, when Emma is home safe, when the immediate crisis has passed. For now, know this. You are not alone. You have never been alone. I have been preparing for this moment since the day you were born. Every choice, every sacrifice, every gift hidden like seeds waiting for spring. The land is yours. The choice is yours. The future is yours. Make it beautiful. All my love, beyond death, beyond time. Mom. Rachel held the letter against her chest, felt Emma's weight in her arms, heard Helen crying quietly in the corner, saw Jack standing in the doorway covered in garden soil and something that looked like hope. We can do this. Jack nodded. We can do this. The stocks were liquidated within 6 hours. Small-town bank manager who remembered Dorothy calling in favors with investment brokers he knew. The money transferred. The tax bill paid with 90 minutes to spare. The county clerk who received payment was the same woman who had processed Dorothy's property tax prepayments for 40 years. She looked at the receipt, looked at Rachel. Your mother was the most stubborn woman I ever knew. Glad to see it runs in the family. Rachel brought Emma home 4 days later. 6 pounds now. Lungs strong, nursing well. The house had been transformed in her absence. The boarded window replaced with new glass. The nursery completed with furniture Thomas had finished from Dorothy's plans. The rocking chair stained and sealed and perfect. The women of the network had left casseroles in the freezer, diapers stacked in the closet, a schedule on the refrigerator showing who would bring meals when, who would help with laundry, who would give Rachel breaks so she could sleep. She carried Emma through rooms that had felt empty and found them full, not with ghosts but with the evidence of community, of people who had loved her mother choosing to love her daughter by extension. Jack had moved into his old room, was working remotely from the kitchen table, managing the CSA finances, calling potential members, building the infrastructure for spring planting that was only 2 months away. In quiet moments, Rachel found the November envelope, hidden in her father's study, in the bottom drawer of his desk, behind files he had kept about farm management and soil conservation, and the careful records of a man who believed in documentation. The envelope contained a single item, her parents' wedding photo, young faces full of hope, Dorothy in a simple white dress, William in his only suit, standing on the church steps in sunshine that made them squint. On the back, in her mother's handwriting, a message dated just days before she died. November is for gratitude, for remembering what was good even when loss makes us forget. Your father loved this land, not for what it was worth but for what it could become. He spent his life building soil, teaching me to see farming as partnership with earth rather than conquest of it. I loved him so much it hurt. When he died, I thought the hurt would kill me too, but you and Jack needed me, so I survived, not because I was strong, because love gave me no choice. That is what I want you to understand. Love does not make things easy, it makes them necessary. Loving this land is hard. Loving your daughter will be harder. Loving the community that supports you requires vulnerability that terrifies. But love is the only force strong enough to build something that lasts. Your father and I had 26 years together. Not enough, never enough, but enough to build a marriage, raise children, create a home where love was practiced daily. You and Emma will have different challenges: single motherhood, financial uncertainty, a world that does not make things easy for women trying to build lives on their own terms. But you have what we had: land that will produce if you partner with it, community that will support if you let them, legacy that connects you to something larger than individual struggle. Use it, all of it. Build the life you deserve. The December envelope is waiting, in the place where we celebrated, where we gathered, where family became more than biology. Find it when you are ready for peace. Rachel found the December envelope on Christmas Eve, in the dining room, tucked inside the china cabinet behind the wedding dishes that had been her grandmother's, dishes used only for special occasions, for gatherings that mattered. Inside, a video file on USB drive and a letter. The letter was brief. My dearest Rachel and Emma, it is Christmas, the season of light in darkness, of hope in winter, of life persisting against cold. If you are reading this, you survived the crisis, the fight, the terrible weeks of not knowing if you were strong enough. You always were. The video is my final gift, recorded 3 days before I died, when I knew time was short but love was not. Watch it together, you and Emma and Jack if he has come home. Let me speak to my family one last time. Then live fully, completely, without the weight of my ghost pressing down. I am so proud of you. Merry Christmas, my darling girls. Mom. Rachel waited until evening, until Emma was fed and changed and sleeping in the bassinet beside the couch, until Jack came in from checking the barn, until Helen arrived with cookies and the quiet companionship that required no explanation. She played the video on her laptop. Dorothy appeared on screen, thin, exhausted, but smiling with the kind of peace that comes from finishing hard work. Hello, my loves. If you are watching this, I have passed on, but I want you to see me as I am now. Not sick, not scared, just tired and ready and so grateful for the life I lived. Rachel, my brave girl, you came home, you fought. You chose to build instead of run. I knew you would, not because you had to, because it is who you are. Emma, my granddaughter, I will never hold. You are loved beyond measure by people you will never meet. Your great-grandfather who saved seeds, your grandmother who planted them for you to discover. We are with you in the taste of bread made from those seeds, in the flowers that bloom each spring, in the soil that feeds you. Jack, if you are there, and I hope you are, you were right to leave when you did. I was wrong to try to keep you, wrong to make you choose between survival and family. I am sorry. Come back when you are ready, not for me, for yourself. This land cannot heal you if you run from it forever, but it will wait. Land is patient that way. And to all of you together, this house has held 3 generations of Heartland joys and sorrows. It has weathered storms, sheltered life, witnessed death. It is just wood and nails and foundation. But it is also every meal shared at that kitchen table, every conversation on that porch, every child who learned to walk on those floors. It is yours now. Make it home. Fill it with new memories. Let it shelter the next generation. I prepared what I could, hid gifts you found, left breadcrumbs you followed, but the real gift is not stocks or letters or business plans. The real gift is choice, agency, the freedom to decide what kind of life you want and the resources to build it. Choose wisely, choose for yourself, but know that whatever you choose, I am proud. I love you beyond words, beyond death, beyond time itself. Now live. That is all I ever wanted, for you to live fully, to love completely, to build beautifully. Merry Christmas. Every Christmas to come. I will be there in the lights and the food and the gathering, in the way you teach Emma about family, in the stories you tell about the grandmother she never met. Live well, my darlings, that is the best revenge, the sweetest memorial, the only legacy that matters. The video ended. The screen went dark. Rachel sat with Emma sleeping against her chest and Jack crying quietly in the corner and Helen holding her hand. Outside, snow was falling, soft and steady, covering the garden where Dorothy died, covering the fields that would be planted in spring, covering Cedar Falls in white silence. Inside, the house held them, warm, safe, filled with the kind of love that persists beyond loss. Rachel looked at her daughter, at her brother, at the woman who had chosen to be family when biology offered nothing. Merry Christmas, Mom, we made it, we are home. Emma stirred, opened eyes that were learning to focus, made the small sounds that meant hunger or discomfort or simply the need to be held. Rachel adjusted her against her shoulder, rocked gently, felt the weight of new life and old legacy and the choice she had made to carry both. Tomorrow there would be work, CSA members to contact, fields to prepare, a business to build from soil and sweat, and the kind of stubborn determination that ran in the women of this family like water runs underground. Tonight there was this: warmth and safety and the sound of her daughter breathing, her brother finding his way back home, her community choosing to gather around struggle and transform it into strength. The radiators clanked their familiar song, the old timbers settled, the house spoke in its language of holding weight, of sheltering life, of persisting through another winter. Spring was coming, and with it the real work would begin. But tonight, Rachel Hartman sat in her mother's living room with her daughter in her arms and her brother by her side, and felt something she had not felt in months. Peace. March arrived with the kind of false promise that Iowa specializes in. 3 days of warmth that fooled the daffodils into sending up green shoots, followed by a hard freeze that should have killed them but somehow did not. The bulbs Dorothy planted knew something about surviving cold that looked final but was only temporary. Rachel stood at the kitchen window watching Jack, and Thomas worked the South 40 with a disc harrow borrowed from a neighbor 3 miles away. Preparing soil for the spring wheat her father had saved 16 years ago, seed that had waded through seasons of grief and absence, and the patient faith that someone would eventually plant what had been preserved. Emma was 3 months old now, sleeping through most nights, nursing with the efficient intensity of someone who understood that survival required fuel. She lay in the bassinet Dorothy had refinished, one tiny fist pressed against her cheek, completely unaware that the land being worked outside the window was her inheritance and her burden both. The house had changed in the 3 months since that desperate Christmas Eve. New roof installed by Jim and Dan, who charged half their usual rate, because Dorothy had once paid their mother's medical bills when the family was broke. Fresh paint on the exterior, the color chosen by Helen, who remembered what shade of white Dorothy preferred. Windows that no longer leaked cold air. Plumbing that worked without the mysterious groans that had marked Rachel's childhood. But the real transformation was harder to see. It lived in the rhythm of daily life, in the rotation of women who brought meals and helped with laundry and held Emma so Rachel could sleep. In Jack's presence at the kitchen table every morning, laptop open, managing CSA finances with the same precision he had once applied to Manhattan investment portfolios. In the schedule on the refrigerator showing which neighbor was planting what in which field, the community garden taking shape across 80 acres that had almost been paved over for parking lots. The phone rang. Ben's name on the screen, his weekly call, exactly on schedule the way he promised it would be. How is she? Growing 8 pounds now. The pediatrician says she is catching up. And you? Tired, healing, learning to do everything one-handed while holding a baby. I could come help if you want. Rachel watched Jack guide the disc harrow in straight lines across dark earth, saw her brother doing work he had once fled from, finding peace in repetition and purpose. Not yet, but maybe soon. I start the new job Monday. Construction safety inspector, state certification, better pay than I expected. That is good. His testimony had been thorough, detailed, devastating to Horizon Properties and the uncle who had raised him. Richard Sullivan was facing fraud charges. The Millerton Strip Mall had been condemned. 3 other projects were under investigation. Ben's cooperation had earned him immunity from prosecution but not from the consequences of association. No development firm would hire him now, so he had pivoted. Turned expertise in cutting corners into expertise in catching people who cut corners. Emma made a sound, the small grunt that meant she would wake soon and want feeding. I should go, she is waking up. Tell her I love her. I will. Rachel hung up, lifted Emma from the bassinet, settled into the rocking chair Thomas had completed from Dorothy's plans, the chair that had been started when her mother first suspected pregnancy and finished after her mother died. Legacy measured in wood grain and joinery and the smooth motion of runners against floor. Emma latched immediately, nursed with eyes half closed. Rachel rocked gently, let her mind drift to the list of things that needed doing. CSA member contracts to finalize, seed orders to confirm, irrigation system to plan, the endless details of turning theoretical business plan into actual farm operation. The front door opened. Helen's voice called out before she appeared. I brought lunch and news. She set a covered dish on the counter, pulled out the chair across from Rachel with the ease of someone who had claimed permanent place at this table. Pastor Tom got a call from a lawyer in Des Moines. Big firm. They want to talk about representing you in a civil suit against Horizon Properties. Pro bono. Something about punitive damages and restitution. We do not need their money. Not about money, about precedent, making it harder for companies like Horizon to pressure families like yours. The lawyer said your mother's case could set standards for how developers approach agricultural land near aquifer recharge zones. Rachel looked down at Emma, at the daughter who would inherit whatever protections they built now. What do you think? I think your mother would want you to choose based on what serves the community, not what serves revenge. What serves the community? Precedent, standards, making it so the next family facing this does not have to fight alone. Then I will talk to the lawyer. Helen nodded, satisfied. She had a way of asking questions that were really directives while making you feel like the choice was entirely your own. After she left, Rachel carried Emma upstairs to the nursery, the room that had been hers, that Dorothy had been preparing as a nursery before anyone officially knew a baby was coming. Walls painted soft green, curtains Helen had sewn, quilt from the quilting circle covering the crib rail, every surface evidence of community investment in one small life. She laid Emma down for a nap, watched her daughter's face relax into sleep, then climbed the narrow stairs to the attic one more time. The boxes Dorothy had labeled and organized were mostly empty now, contents distributed, childhood artwork framed and hung in Emma's room, school papers boxed for Emma to discover when she was old enough to care, holiday decorations used to make the house festive again instead of frozen in time. But there was one box Rachel had not touched yet, labeled simply with her mother's handwriting, "For Rachel, when ready." She opened it now. Inside, journals spanning 40 years, not the garden journal she had already found. These were different, personal. Dorothy's private thoughts recorded in cheap composition books purchased at back-to-school sales. Rachel opened the first one, dated 1984, the year before she was born. "William asked me to marry him today. In the garden, on his knees in the dirt with a ring he saved 6 months to buy. I said yes before he finished asking. I am terrified. My mother's illness is getting worse. She forgets my name sometimes. Gets angry when I try to help. The doctors say it will only get worse, that I should prepare for her to not know me at all eventually. What if I become her? What if I have children and then lose myself the way she is losing herself? What if I hurt them the way she hurts me with her suspicion and her anger and her inability to trust anyone? William says I am not my mother. That fear of becoming her is proof I will not. That awareness is prevention. I want to believe him." Rachel flipped through years, through entries about pregnancy and birth and the overwhelming terror of being responsible for keeping another human alive, through William's death and the grief that nearly drowned her, through Jack's departure and the guilt that maybe she had driven him away by holding too tight. Then entries from the last year, when Dorothy knew she was dying and was racing against time to prepare. "I hired a private investigator to research Ben Sullivan. Rachel thinks I am paranoid. Maybe I am. Maybe I am becoming my mother after all, seeing threats everywhere, trusting no one. But I cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong. The way he looks at her sometimes, like she is a problem to solve instead of a person to love. The way he steers conversations toward our land, our finances, our future plans." The investigator confirmed my fears. Ben is not who he claims. His uncle owns the development company circling our property. The relationship is an assignment. I tried to tell Rachel. She accused me of sabotaging her happiness, of being controlling, of becoming the paranoid old woman who drove everyone away. Maybe she is right. Maybe I am. But if I am wrong about Ben and stay silent, I enable harm. If I am right and speak up, I damage our relationship maybe beyond repair. I chose to speak. She chose not to listen. Now we barely talk. I am losing her the way I lost Jack, by loving too hard, by trying to protect when I should let go. If I become the mother who drove both children away, at least I will be the mother who tried to keep them safe, even when safety looked like control. The entries stopped 2 weeks before Dorothy died. The final one was dated the day after her testimony at the county council. "I think I am dying. My heart is failing in ways that feel different from stress or age. I am so tired. Every breath feels borrowed. Every morning I wake surprised to have another day. But I am not afraid. I have done what I could. Hidden gifts Rachel will find if she comes home. Built networks that will support her if she stays. Prepared the land to be productive if she chooses to farm it. The rest is up to her, and that is as it should be. Children are not extensions of parents. They are their own people making their own choices. My job was never to control her path, only to clear obstacles where I could, to leave tools she might need, to love her completely and then let go. If she sells the land, I will understand. If she stays and fights, I will be proud. Either way, she will be choosing for herself, and choice is the greatest gift I can give. I think about William, about how young we were when he died, how much life we should have had together, how unfair it is that I get to meet our granddaughter, even if only in preparation, while he never knew we would have grandchildren at all. But we built something. Will and I, we built soil and home and children who are stronger than they know. We built a marriage that was worth every moment, even if there should have been more moments. If I die tomorrow, I die grateful for William, for Rachel and Jack, for Emma, who I will never hold but already love, for the community that has sustained me, for the land that fed us. That is enough. That has to be enough. If I get more days, I will use them to prepare more. If this is the last entry, let it stand as final testimony. I lived fully, I loved completely, I did my best. The rest is up to them. Rachel closed the journal, pressed it against her chest, felt the weight of her mother's choices, the impossible decisions between protection and control, between warning and trust, between holding on and letting go. She understood now. Dorothy had not been perfect, had made mistakes born from trauma and fear and the terrible knowledge that mental illness might be inherited. But she had loved fiercely, had chosen to risk being seen as controlling rather than stay silent about genuine threats, had prepared obsessively not to manipulate but to give options. Rachel descended from the attic, found Jack in the kitchen making coffee. I read Mom's journals. And she was terrified of becoming her mother, of being controlling, of driving us away. Every choice she made was filtered through that fear. Jack poured 2 cups, handed one to Rachel. They stood together at the counter where Dorothy had stood thousands of times, planning meals, paying bills, keeping a household running through sheer determination. I think I understand now why she kept Jack's room preserved, Rachel said. Why she kept the acceptance letters. She was honoring your choice to leave, proving she could let go even when it hurt her. Jack's eyes were wet. I thought she kept it as a shrine to her disappointment, to what I should have been. No, it was proof she loved you enough to let you survive in your own way, even when your way meant leaving. They stood in silence, 2 siblings learning to understand their mother by becoming parents themselves, or in Jack's case, by witnessing parenthood close enough to recognize its impossible weight. I am thinking about staying, Jack said, not just part-time, really staying, selling the New York apartment, building a life here. Why? Because I am tired of running, because this land does not scare me anymore, because I want to be the uncle who shows up, who teaches Emma about compound interest and why soil pH matters. What about your debt? Working on it. Payment plan. It will take years, but I will clear it. Turns out I am good at budget management when the budget is mine instead of abstract millions for clients I never met. Rachel squeezed his hand. Mom would be happy, you coming home. She always left the door open. I was just too scared to walk through it. The spring planting happened in early April. 40 members of the Cedar Falls community showed up on a Saturday morning to help. Families who had signed CSA contracts, neighbors who remembered Dorothy, high school students earning agricultural credit through Linda's program, people who wanted to be part of building something instead of watching things fall apart. They planted the spring wheat in straight rows across the South 40, used seed her father saved and her mother preserved and her daughter would someday harvest. The work was hard, backs aching by noon, hands blistered despite gloves, but there was something satisfying about it, something ancient and right about putting seeds in earth and trusting growth would follow. Pastor Tom blessed the planting, not a religious ceremony exactly, more a recognition that farming is always an act of faith, that you plant in spring trusting summer will be kind and fall will bring harvest, that generations of farmers before had done exactly this, that the work connected them to everyone who had ever bet their survival on seeds and soil and whether beyond their control. Emma watched from a carrier on Rachel's chest, 3 months old, eyes tracking movement, making small sounds when something interested her. Growing up from day one understanding that life meant community. That survival required many hands. That family was bigger than blood. Ben came for Emma's first visit that weekend, awkward at first, standing on the porch like a stranger asking permission to enter. Rachel let him in, let him hold his daughter, watched him rock her carefully while she slept against his chest. "You are doing this right," she told him, "the showing up, the consistency, the not expecting forgiveness you have not earned yet." "How long until I earn it?" "I do not know, maybe years, maybe never, but this is what trying looks like." He nodded, accepted the boundary, left after an hour without pushing for more. Jack watched from the kitchen. "You could let him back in faster if you wanted." "I know, but I want Emma to see what earned trust looks like, not what desperate reconciliation looks like. There is a difference. Smart kid is going to have a smart mom." By June, the CSA was producing. Not abundantly. The first year is always about learning, about figuring out what grows well in which soil, about managing pests without chemicals, about the thousand small adjustments that make the difference between crop failure and modest success. But boxes went out every week to 40 families. Lettuce and radishes and early peas, strawberries that made children's faces sticky with joy, the first tomatoes that tasted like summer, food grown within 5 miles of where it was eaten, relationships built between people who grew and people who consumed. Rachel discovered she loved it, the early mornings checking irrigation, the late afternoons harvesting what was ready, the quiet satisfaction of physical work that produced tangible results. Her body was different after pregnancy, softer in some places, stronger in others, capable of things she had not known she could do. Emma grew, 6 months old, sitting up, grabbing everything, laughing at the chickens Jack had built a coop for, tasting her first solid food, organic carrots grown in soil her great-grandfather had built. In July, Rachel found what the contractors had been looking for when they repaired the foundation, a room she had never known existed, hidden behind a false wall in the basement, accessible only through a panel that looked like structural support but swung open if you knew where to press. Inside, the room was small, 10 by 12 maybe, lined with shelves, and on those shelves everything, every document, every photo, every piece of evidence Dorothy had gathered in her final years. The lawsuit against Horizon Properties, medical records showing the timeline of her decline, water quality reports, soil samples, audio recordings of threatening phone calls, video of the men who threw the rock through the window captured on a security camera Rachel had not known existed. And in the center of the room, a banker's box labeled for Emma's 18th birthday. Rachel opened it. Inside, letters, 18 of them, one for each year until Emma turned 18. Each envelope marked with a year and an occasion: first day of school, first heartbreak, first big decision, graduation, leaving home. Dorothy had written to a granddaughter she would never meet, had anticipated milestones she would miss, had tried to be present across years and death through careful words left like seeds. Rachel read only the first letter, the one marked first birthday, saved the rest for Emma to open when she was old enough to understand. My dearest Emma, you are 1 year old today, walking probably, saying a few words, discovering that the world is bigger than you imagined and you are powerful enough to affect it. I wish I could see you, hold you, watch you learn that falling down is not failure, just part of learning to stand. But since I cannot be there in body, I am here in words. Know this: you come from a line of stubborn women who refused to accept defeat even when defeat seemed inevitable. Your great-grandmother built a life despite mental illness that should have destroyed her. Your grandmother survived losing her husband and raised children alone and built soil that will feed you. Your mother chose to fight when flight was easier and built a community that will support you. You are the inheritor of all that strength. Use it, not to prove anything, just to build the life you want. The land is yours if you want it, or sell it and build something else. Either way you choose. That is the greatest gift we can give you: choice, agency, freedom to become who you are instead of what others expect. I love you beyond death, beyond time, beyond any limit imagination can create. Happy first birthday, my darling girl. Your grandmother, who you will know through stories. Rachel folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, returned all 18 letters to the box for Emma to discover when she was ready. Summer turned to fall. The wheat harvest came in September, not abundant but solid, enough to make bread and save seed for next year's planting. Jack organized a harvest festival, invited everyone who had helped plant, served bread made from wheat William saved and Dorothy preserved and Rachel planted, and the community harvested together. Emma was 9 months old, crawling everywhere, pulling herself up on furniture, on the verge of walking, determined and fearless in the way children are before they learn that falling can mean more than momentary pain. Ben came every Sunday now, had moved to an apartment in Cedar Falls, took shifts watching Emma so Rachel could work, never asked for more than was offered, proving through months of consistency that he meant what he promised. One Sunday in October, Rachel let him stay for dinner, let him sit at the table where 4 generations of Hartmans had eaten, let Jack tell stories about their father, let the evening stretch into something that felt almost like family. After Emma was asleep, after Jack had retreated to his room, Rachel and Ben sat on the porch in the cool evening air. Thank you for this, for letting me be part of her life. You are her father. That is not something I can take away even if I wanted to. But you could make it harder. Instead, you make it possible. I am making it earned. There is a difference. I know. They sat in silence, watching stars emerge in a clear October sky, hearing the last crickets of autumn and the first geese heading south and all the sounds of a world preparing for winter. Do you think you will ever forgive me? Ben asked. I do not know. Forgiveness is not something you decide. It is something that happens or does not happen when you stop paying attention. Ask me in 5 years. Fair enough. Emma's first birthday fell on a gray December morning that promised snow. Rachel woke early, fed her daughter, dressed her in the green sweater Helen had knitted, carried her downstairs to a house that had been transformed overnight. The quilting circle had decorated while Rachel slept, streamers and balloons, a banner declaring happy first birthday Emma, casseroles and cakes covering every surface of the kitchen. 20 people gathered in the living room waiting to celebrate a child who had been born too early into too much uncertainty and had thrived despite it all. Pastor Tom blessed the gathering. Helen presented the finished quilt, 40 squares made by 40 women, each one representing a blessing or a hope or a memory of Dorothy. The quilt was enormous, would fit a full-size bed, would grow with Emma through childhood and adolescence and into adulthood. Jack gave Emma a savings bond, started the same college fund Dorothy had started for Rachel, proof that tradition could be chosen rather than inherited. Ben gave Emma a photo album, pictures of her first year. Rachel had not realized he was documenting, had not noticed him taking photos during his Sunday visits, but there they were. Emma at 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, growing, changing, becoming. Rachel gave Emma the October letter. Read it aloud to a 1-year-old who could not yet understand but someday would. Let the community hear Dorothy's words. Let them witness the continuation of legacy from woman to woman to woman. After everyone left, after Emma was asleep in her crib, exhausted from attention and cake, Rachel stood in the garden where her mother had died planting something for this exact day. The perennials were dormant now, daffodils sleeping underground, peonies reduced to bare stalks, black-eyed Susans cut back to roots that would survive winter and return in spring. But she could see them anyway, could imagine how they would look in March when Emma was 15 months old, in June when she was 18 months, in August of her second summer. The garden Dorothy planted stretching years into the future, marking time in blooms instead of calendars. Spring came early to Cedar Falls that year. By March, Rachel was planting again, this time with Emma toddling between rows, picking up seed packets, trying to eat dirt, discovering worms with the kind of fascinated horror that makes adults laugh. The CSA had grown to 60-member families, word spreading about quality and freshness and the satisfaction of knowing exactly where food came from. Jack had structured it as a cooperative. Members could work for reduced share prices, could participate in decisions about what to plant, could be owners rather than just consumers. It was not making them rich, but it was sustainable. Rachel drew a modest salary, enough to cover expenses and save a little, enough to prove that farming could be viable without exploitation. That land could produce without being destroyed. Ben proposed in April, not marriage, co-parenting agreement, legally binding, outlining custody and support and decision-making. Rachel's lawyer reviewed it, pronounced it fair, more than fair, generous in ways that suggested genuine commitment rather than obligation. They signed it in Pastor Tom's office, made it official, did not celebrate exactly, but acknowledged that they were building something, not the romance they started with, something different, harder, more honest. You could still come back, Ben said after they signed, to us, to trying. Rachel shook her head. What we had was built on lies. We cannot just resume from where it broke. We have to build something new or build nothing. So we build something new, as parents, as partners in Emma's life. Yes, that. It was enough. It had to be enough. By Emma's second birthday, the house felt completely different. No longer a museum of grief, but a home filled with life. Jack had a girlfriend, Linda's sister, who taught elementary music and loved gardening. They were taking it slow, learning each other, but there was laughter in the house again. The sound of adults building relationship without the shadows of past failures pressing down. Ben had met someone too, a woman who worked at the county soil conservation office, who understood agriculture and long-term thinking and the value of patience. He brought her to Sunday dinners sometimes. Let Emma get used to the idea that adults could love multiple people in different ways. Rachel dated occasionally, men from surrounding towns, a veterinarian, a teacher, a carpenter, nothing serious. She was not ready for serious, was still learning who she was as a single mother and farmer and woman building a life on her own terms. But she was not lonely. The house was full of people, Helen stopping by daily, the quilting circle meeting in the living room every Tuesday, CSA members helping with harvest, Emma's second birthday party filling every room with children and chaos and the kind of noise that means life is happening. On the anniversary of Dorothy's death, Rachel planted a tree, a sugar maple, in the spot where her mother collapsed, where she had been planting something for Emma when her heart gave out for the final time. The whole community came, stood in silence as Rachel and Jack lowered the sapling into earth, as Emma patted dirt around roots with tiny hands that did not understand ceremony but sensed importance. Pastor Tom spoke about legacy, about how we live on not in monuments but in changed soil and changed lives and the communities we build. Helen placed a stone at the base of the tree, granite, engraved with simple words: Dorothy Hartman, teacher, mother, farmer, friend, builder of soil and community, 1963 to 2024. That evening, Rachel sat in the rocking chair with Emma nearly asleep against her chest. The chair Thomas finished from Dorothy's plans. The chair that had held 3 generations now. The chair that would hold more if Emma chose to stay. If she chose to build her own life here. If she chose at all. Rachel rocked gently, felt the smooth motion of runners against floor, the weight of her daughter growing heavier with sleep, the house settling around them with its familiar symphony of sound. Through the window, she could see fields green with early growth, the CSA garden producing food for 60 families, the wheat field showing first shoots of another generation of seed that her father saved and her mother preserved and she had planted. Beyond the fields, Cedar Falls, the town that had supported her, the community that had chosen to gather around struggle and transform it into strength, the network of people who loved Dorothy enough to love her daughter by extension. Emma stirred, made a small sound, settled deeper into sleep. Rachel looked down at her daughter's face, saw traces of herself in Ben and Dorothy and William, saw the future unwritten, saw choice waiting to be exercised. This was the gift, not the land, not the house, not even the community, though all those mattered. The gift was agency, the freedom to choose what kind of life to build, the resources to make that choice real, the support to sustain it. Dorothy had spent her final months preparing this, hiding gifts, building networks, clearing obstacles, all so Rachel could choose freely, so Emma could inherit choice rather than obligation. Outside, stars emerged in the spring darkness, the same stars that had watched 4 generations of Hartmans work this land, build this soil, raise these children, make these choices. Rachel stood, carried Emma upstairs, laid her in the crib Dorothy refinished, covered her with the quilt 40 women made, kissed her forehead and whispered the words Dorothy had written in that final letter. You come from stubborn women who refuse to accept defeat. Use that strength, not to prove anything, just to build the life you want. Emma slept, unaware of inheritance or legacy or the weight of choice. Just a child dreaming child dreams in a house that had sheltered 4 generations and would shelter more if anyone chose to stay. Rachel stood at the nursery window, looked out over land her great-grandfather bought in 1934, that her grandfather worked until his heart gave out, that her father built into something sustainable until a tractor rolled and crushed him, that her mother defended until stress or something worse stopped her heart. The land that was now hers, hers to keep or sell, hers to farm or abandon, hers to pass on or let go. She thought about the offer Horizon Properties would make again eventually, thought about the money that would solve problems, thought about the ease of walking away. Then she thought about Emma tasting carrots grown in soil her great-grandfather built, about 60 families eating food grown within 5 miles, about Jack healing trauma by returning to what he feared, about community gathering not because they had to, but because they chose to. She thought about Dorothy's final words, live well, that is the best revenge, the sweetest memorial, the only legacy that matters. Rachel turned from the window, descended the stairs, found Jack at the kitchen table working on next year's crop rotation plan. I am staying, she said. I know. I mean really staying. This is home, not temporary home. Jack looked up, smiled. Good, Emma needs roots, so do you. Rachel sat across from him, looked at the calendar on the wall showing planting schedules and harvest dates, and the rhythm of agricultural life. Looked at the house that had held her mother's love and her father's work and her brother's healing. Looked at the choice she was making, not because she had to, because she wanted to. Spring in winter, growth in dormancy, life choosing to persist against cold that looked final but was only temporary. That was the lesson, that was the gift. That was home. The end. Epilogue. 5 years later, Emma started kindergarten at Cedar Falls Elementary. Her teacher was Linda's niece. Her classmates were children of CSA members. She brought vegetables from the farm for show and tell. Explained with 5-year-old certainty that her great-grandfather saved seeds and her grandmother planted them and her mother grew them, and someday she would too. Jack married Linda's sister. They lived in town but worked the farm daily. Had 2 children who would grow up calling Emma cousin, who would learn farming alongside her, who would inherit choice the same way she had. Ben remained a consistent presence. Every Sunday, every birthday, every milestone. He married the woman from soil conservation. They had a daughter who was Emma's half-sister. The girls played together, fought occasionally, loved each other the complicated way siblings do. Rachel never remarried, dated occasionally, built a life that was full without requiring romantic partnership, became the kind of woman her mother had been, stubborn, strategic, devoted to community, preparing for futures she would not see. The CSA grew to 80-member families, then plateaued. Rachel was fine with that. Sustainable meant finding balance, not always growing, just persisting. Cedar Falls slowly changed. Young families moved in, attracted by CSA agriculture and community that functioned. The elementary school that had been shrinking started growing. Main Street businesses that had been closing started thriving. Not dramatic change, just the slow greening that happens when people choose to invest in place instead of abandoning it. Dorothy's maple tree grew, each year a foot taller, each year roots reaching deeper. By Emma's 10th birthday it was tall enough to climb. She did, regularly, sitting in branches reading books or watching clouds or simply being alone the way children sometimes need to be. On Emma's 18th birthday, Rachel gave her the box, 18 letters, one for each year, Dorothy's words preserved across death and time. Emma read them all in one sitting, cried through most of them, emerged from her room with red eyes and something like understanding. She stayed, Emma said. Grandmother stayed even though it was hard, even though people wanted her to sell. She stayed because she believed this place mattered. Rachel nodded. She stayed so you could choose. Emma looked out the window at fields green with June growth, at the CSA garden producing food for 80 families, at the maple tree planted on the spot where Dorothy died. I choose to stay too, not because I have to, because I want to. Rachel hugged her daughter, felt the completion of something Dorothy started, the circle closing, the legacy passing to another generation who chose it freely. That night Rachel climbed to the attic one final time, found the last journal Dorothy kept, read the final entry again. If I die tomorrow, I die grateful, for William, for Rachel and Jack, for Emma who I will never hold but already love, for the community that sustained me, for the land that fed us. That is enough, that has to be enough. Rachel closed the journal, whispered to the empty attic and the ghost of her mother and the spirit of legacy that persisted beyond death. It was enough, Mom, what you built was enough. We are still here, still growing, still choosing to stay. Thank you for everything, for the gifts and the preparation and the love that would not quit even when we did not deserve it. We are living well. That is your memorial, your revenge, your legacy. We are living well. Outside, summer darkness settled over Cedar Falls. Over 80 acres that had been almost paved over but were producing food instead. Over a house that had almost been sold but was home to 4 generations instead. Over land that had been almost destroyed but was being built back one season at a time. Inside, Rachel descended from the attic for the last time, closed the door on journals and memories and the careful documentation of a life lived in preparation for futures unseen. Went to the kitchen where Emma was making bread. Using wheat grown from seed William saved 40 years ago. Using her great-grandmother's recipe. Feeding her family and her community and the future with hands and work, and the kind of love that persists through seasons and generations and time itself. This was the inheritance, this was the gift. Not land or money or even legacy. Just love, prepared, preserved, planted like seeds, growing when conditions were right, feeding what came after. Always feeding what came after.